Drink your glass, Chad, you big...
Nah.
Nathan says I said something inappropriate. With using his face though.
Well, your face is inappropriate. Welcome back to The Watch, ye fellow brothers and sisters, ye fellow watchers on the web. For the writing is good, and his liking of errors. And now, our watch begins. And oh boy, Arcane!
That's a new
Okay.
intro.
Well, I mean, we've got to adapt it, because...
Some good news, Chad. You told me that we didn't watch something terrible?
Holy crap!
Yeah.
Like, Arcane!
There's so many comments in our video saying, you guys just hate on everything. You hate on everything. Well, we're making up for it now.
And it's not because we're trying to like it or trying to hate it. No, we go in to something, oh, well, this I do, wanting to give it a fair shake, right? If it's going to be good, good, bad, bad, let me just see what it is. And this is the thing, like, Arcane, I wasn't sold on it in the first or second episodes, but there was enough to grab me, to make me want to keep watching. And then episode 3 comes along, and seriously, I'm being honest here. It's a masterpiece.
I was sold in the first minute.
You were sold in the first minute. There was some, like, granted, there's a great opening. There's some really good things in episode 1 and 2, and we're going to go through it. The thing why I wasn't sold on it, even though there's very little to criticize in episode 1 and 2, it hadn't grabbed me yet. It hadn't like, you know, hooked me to the point where I was getting an emotional reaction, thrill. I was investing in the characters. But episode 3, man, that comes in just like a sledgehammer, and in a good way. And what's important about episode 3 is it did need episode 1 and 2 to set up the events in episode 3. Like, that was very well set up. It's like a slow burn. These creators are not impatient. They're doing all the things you need to do to come in with this incredible... Like, episode 3 from start to finish is, like I said, second time watching it, I just found more to praise with it, and I would go as far to call it a masterpiece. And not only, like, one of the best pieces of media we've seen in recent time, I would almost go as far to say it's one of the best pieces of media ever made. It's up there amongst the best.
So far, I can't find any fault with that.
No, I agree. I think it was... No, I agree. I can't...
The animation's beautiful. The writing's incredible.
The characters are
great.
And relatable.
Yeah.
The characters are deep and well fleshed out and justified in their progression and arcs. And when have we seen this recently? It's like, this is beyond water in a drought. This is like a flood. It's like we've been waiting for something good. And they are, like, it's so clear the writers understand the characters. And I'm going to show specific examples because, once again, I come with notes, okay? 3 pages worth of this one for the first 3 episodes, and watching very clearly and distinctly of what they're doing with the characters, what they're setting up, and they're being true to their background. And one of the things that I like, this is clear evidence of a show that is, and writers that understand characters and are just trying to make like believable characters you can get invested in, and they want to make an incredible story, and everything's playing out, and there's no agenda. They're not trying to push a message or anything. They're just trying to make a good story with good characters, and it's really shown in Vander, Vi, and Powder. Like, those 3 characters are just tops.
Well, my personal favourite of the first 3 episodes is Silco.
Silco?
Silco's my favourite character.
And again, Silco, he's not a mustache-twirling villain. He has motivations and a plan, an actual plan that's not stupid. Like, there's so much good with it.
I'd go on to say that he's actually a hero.
You reckon?
Yep. He's an anti-hero, but he is his own form of hero. He's not a villain. Certainly not.
He sees, well, it's already, because we don't want to go beyond episode 3. We have seen the whole series.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah, of course. In episode 3, he's a villain.
Oz, spoilers.
The thing is, though, in episode 3, it establishes his motive. He actually sees himself as a freedom fighter to liberate the Undercity.
Yeah.
He wants respect. He wants independence. Okay? And a lot of the issues that the Undercity is having with Piltover is pretty justified.
Yeah.
But also Piltover, like, there's a lot of crime happening in the Undercity. I mean, there's legitimately someone who, blew up half a penthouse, and you see... I love when both sides have at least logic and validity behind them, even if one side's wrong and you can see more things.
The creators, I was watching a talk between the, what's his name? Is it something Lee and...
Yeah, the two
Link?
showrunners, basically, yeah.
I think it's Matthew Link. I can't remember his first name. But basically he said, it's important for us to show that on both sides of conflict there is some justification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like...
Finally someone thinks about it. Finally someone has the nuance to be like, let's show both sides of this conflict fairly. Finally. Oh, man.
This is what happens when you get competent writers.
Yes!
Like,
people who love this stuff they're doing are directly involved, the creators themselves, not some skin suit wearing corporation.
That wants to push a message over, either doing justice to... Like, we're coming to this after dealing with Wheel of Time, right?
Yeah.
It's night and day. Like, this is... Again, this is the type of literature you can enjoy. A lot of books are still doing great stuff. Brandon Sanderson doing great stuff, right? And you can still enjoy it. But in terms of modern media that's being made in terms of TV show, movies and stuff, this is like just
a masterpiece.
Water in a drought.
Yeah.
With truly competent writers that they're not trying to... I've repeated it, and I'm going to say they're not trying to push a message. And you can really see this. And this stands out to be like Vander, Vi, and Powder. Like these are two female protagonists.
Yeah.
Look at how much they fail. Look at how flawed they are. Yet their struggle to succeed. And boy, this comes through in episode 3 with Vi. That's her hero moment where she steps up even against the odds. It just gives it gives me a full-on buzz, and I'm fully invested, and it's just great. And when you fight through weaknesses to overcome, it makes the successes so much more appreciable. And the thing is, she doesn't even really win. She does get beaten, but she gets a win. They do this and execute it with really top tier skill, where Vi gets a significant win. We'll get to the specifics in episode 3. Yet she also, after she wins, she loses, and I'm honestly touched by what they did with Vander. I'm not kidding.
Oh,
right?
man, yeah. Oh, dude. Vander.
What an amazing father figure.
Yep.
And this is important. This type of character is important for Vi and Powder. It's crucial to the story that they needed, especially Vi. And again, we're going to get into specifics as we go bit by bit. But Vi needed a really strong father figure to mold herself off of. Okay, this is how she's becoming a hero. Why do you think heroes in stories have mentors? Okay, it's because there is this interesting thing in reality when you're growing up, you need good role models to mold yourself off of. And it usually starts with your father and mother. And with boys, young boys, it's very much modeling themselves off their father. But if you're modeling yourself off a heroic type of figure, well, who's usually going to be the gender that does stand up to fight because they're usually a bit stronger? It'll be men, okay? Now, that's not to say Vi couldn't have had a really great female figure, but the thing is, it worked so well with Vander because he's a father, he's protective, he's all those things just suited a male character. But in the modern climate, they're so reluctant to portray men, honestly, as heroic, noble, self-sacrificing, upstanding, something to mold yourself off of, be the protector role and things like that, where it's so just common sense in reality that role often falls to men. And this show wasn't afraid about it. I haven't even seen any woke outrage against it for the father figure role, but we see that getting subverted in a lot of other media. Look at how they treat most of the male heroes in Wheel of Time. I mean, the contrast is
there are male heroes in Wheel of Time?
Well, I didn't notice. In the original one there is. I mean, there's such a powerful moment in episode 3. I need to jump to it just quickly, right?
Okay, fine.
I mean, even thinking about it, I'm almost tearing up, right?
What, when he gave himself up instead?
So many levels.
Yeah.
But Vander Okay, so this is important. Clagger and Milo are his sons, as much as as like I don't know if they're. I think Clagger might actually be his genetic son. Okay, because there's a similarity there, and when he goes to see one of the guys, he takes Clagger with him and stuff, and so. I wish they could have actually told us that there's a bit of information missing, but still, Milo and Clagger are much his children as Powder and Vi, and even though Powder and Vi are adopted by him. He loves them as much as they're his own. Like, really.
Well, he took on the response. You saw it in the literally first
thing.
scene.
Like,
he realized he got their parents killed. So it's like, well,
they're my responsibility.
Yep.
Yeah, step up. Oh, gosh.
That's a bro moment.
Oh, right?
In case you didn't realize, this is a spoiler-filled review, and from now on, there's going to be major spoilers. You have been warned. Escape now if you don't want to be spoiled. From here on in, if you stay, it's your own fault.
But then there's a scene in episode 3 where he sees Clagger and Milo dead.
Oh, yeah.
These are his kids. Now, I want you to contrast this with the reaction of another character who has someone close to him die, right? And we're talking about Lan in Wheel of Time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Instead of breaking down and crying, okay, and seeing that his children are just dead, he also sees Vi, who's alive, and she's struggling to live, and she needs to be saved. And so what does he do? Instead of breaking down, he doesn't even shed a tear. It's not the right time. He'll cry when he needs to cry, okay? And he does shed tears right at his death, okay? But not here, because there's a job that needs to be done. And he gets up and does what needs to be done because he's a man. And that's what you freaking do. And he gets up and he goes to take on this mutant to save Vi's life. And that's not the only time he chooses to sacrifice himself to save his daughter. There are multiple times in this episode. He did it before that. And he also did it when he gets killed, like essentially defeated by the mutant, and he falls on the crates of Shimmer. And he's defeated, but then the Shimmer is there. And so he will sacrifice it all.
One last fight.
One last thing to save Vi.
Yep.
And he takes the Shimmer, becomes a mutant. And then not only that, he defeats the mutant, right? And then he sees Silco, standing off to the side. And he has a choice. He can take vengeance, kill Silco, or save Vi. What does he choose?
Vi.
He saves Vi. And he does it, again, by sacrificing himself. He grabs her, he's got the strength, he burls through like a wall, but is several stories high, and so he makes sure he lands first, saving Vi's life by killing himself in the process.
Well, that situation was actually foreshadowed in Silco's intro. He said, when he talks about drowning, he says, I know what it's like to drown. The water hugs you and basically says, you know, it's okay, but then there's an animal part in your brain that fights. And so he says after that, how many people in their life have to make that sort of decision? And that literal moment between choosing to save Vi and die, or choosing to kill Psycho and get vengeance, like that's the literal decision right there. And so many characters have that exact moment throughout the show. Almost all of them do. It's just, like, I'm not a big themes guy. Like, my themes, but I really like it when they do it well. I love it when they do it well, you know?
And so Vander's heroic sacrifice honestly touched my heart.
Oh, yeah.
It was a father giving it all to save his child, even in the face that he had lost to already. I'm honestly tearing up thinking about it. It's amazing. Like, this is true heroism. This is what a father would do. And honestly, this show, there are so many areas to praise it for it, but the fact that they would portray something that is so true, so honestly, and did it so much justice. This show has earned my love for what it did in portraying this so beautifully. Vander's arc is incredible. I love that guy. What just an ultimate Chad legend.
Sucks that he's dead though. I want to see more Vander. I want a prequel.
But it was like, that episode is also so tragic. Like, the creators have such friggin' balls! Like, 2 primary characters that I thought were going to be main characters are killed off, and it's heartbreaking.
Who's the other one?
So 2 primary characters, we're talking about Clagger and Milo got killed off.
Yeah.
And also Vander dies as well. And it's all Powder's fault.
I have to call you up there.
You reckon?
It's not Powder's fault. She's a kid.
Exactly.
It's Vi's fault. Look, Vi is a great character. I love her character, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like... It's her decisions and her influence that lead to Powder doing that.
Well, yes and no, because this is again why the show is so brilliant, because Vi is totally justified in making Powder stay back.
Oh, absolutely.
She's not ready.
Absolutely,
Not
yeah.
ready at all.
But at the same time, maybe, you know, the years leading up to that, you shouldn't have brought her on jobs and when she's 9 years old and taught her how to make or let her make explosives. Those are two things you probably should do for a 9-year-old.
But I think it's in line with what they're basically trying to survive in a really aggressive underworld. You need to grow up faster, and so it's, you know, baptism by fire. You need to learn to do these things quicker.
Yeah.
And so that was actually Vi trying to train Powder, teach her to be ready for this tough world, and it was really generous of her to take her on all these missions, even though she is causing legitimate problems. But when there's a mission that's really serious, she can't risk it. And so it makes perfect sense that she forces Powder to stay back, and then Powder's reaction is perfectly justified because everyone she loves is going off to risk their lives, they might die, to save her father, the one that she also loves. And so that scene where she's losing it, it's done so good!
Do we know that Silco was going to kill Vander? I don't think he was.
He had a great plan.
What was his plan?
We'll go to it bit by bit, but look, maybe, I don't know if we will go chronologically, because I like the flow of the conversation at the moment.
Yeah. But we should go through some of your points.
Yeah, we will go through your
there,
points,
yeah.
but if we come to it naturally just in the conversation, I'm just going to bring it up. So, Silco, right? He wants control of the Undercity. Vander is the guy that's in control at the moment, so he needs to get rid of him. Easiest way is to kill him, but this is a problem. He has all this loyalty.
Yeah, he
if
doesn't
he
want to kill him.
kills Vander, he's going to be a martyr and everyone's going to hate him. And so he actually, because at first when, at the beginning of episode 3, Vi is there's so much good things in this show. Vi is ready to hand herself in. The Piltover police are ready to almost declare war to find out that because the Undercity is protecting them for accidentally causing that explosion. The Upper City thinks it's a legitimate, almost terrorist attack, basically. And so they need, and Vander calls it their pound of flesh. They need an example to show that they're in control. And so Vi decides that she's going to do it. She's going to turn herself in.
Which is a great thing for her character.
What a heroic sacrifice for her character as well. And she's doing it because she's learning off the example of Vander. It sets up in the previous episode where Vander,
It's on you, that's what he says. It's on
exactly.
you.
He said, it's set up beautifully. And this is, again, such a great mentor father figure role where Vander sits Vi down and says, these kids look up to you. If you say jump, they'll say, hey, hi. If you say, put oil on a fire, they'll light it. It's like, but you have to remember, everything that you do is on you because they're listening to you. And that's a good, proper lesson that she needs to learn. And she's trying to emulate. Vander is this beacon of responsibility, and she wants to be like him because she has the role model to base herself off of. And so she knows what to do because she knows what Vander would do. She's going to turn herself in. And what I love, Vander comes and stops her and then does the exact thing that she was going to do.
Yep.
She knew what he would do, and he does that exact thing, proving that by turning himself in, because that's what the father does. The father will push their child out of the way of the incoming bus and sacrifice himself for his kids. That's the role of the dad, to protect his wife and children, and his life is the first thing on the chopping block if it ever comes to that. And this show understands it. They get what that role is. Vander personifies this perfectly. So he hands himself in. And so the first episode is setting up this great conflict where, holy crap, Vander's going to be arrested. What's going to happen? And then it's subverted right out of the gate. This is where subverting is awesome, where it's this great twist where they get attacked by the mutants.
Yeah.
And the police chief lady gets killed. And you might wonder, why didn't Silco kill Vander here? Because he wants him dead, all right? But the writers are so aware, they're talented, they know how to plan out a plot and pay off perfectly, right?
Don't mess with the guy who pours the drinks. That's the whole... Yeah.
They know what's going on, and so they explain this perfectly, okay? Because then, instead of killing Vander, he kidnaps him. And in episode 3, there's this little thing that... It's an interesting point, but I think I ultimately chose the right way, okay? The kids now want to break free their father. Vi goes after them. They break in, and when they finally find Vander, Vander's like, how'd you get in here? And she's like, it was easy. There was a window open, we crawled in, and then Vi realized, oh no.
Yeah.
And then, because what I love about this, there's so much good! Oh, I love it! so many other crap shows have like heroes break into something without any difficulty at all, and they just leave it. It's like the most retarded thing ever, and just because the bad guys just don't know how to secure a thing. Where this is a legitimate plot point that it's so easy that something's up, they let you in, and I love that this show actually not only does it like. Because they point out how dumb these things are in other shows where everyone just breaks in and it's so easy and there's no resistance, where they use it as a plot point saying, no, that's a problem, they let you in, this is a trap. And it is a trap. Silco comes out, and then he says, now this line, I do admit, is for the audience. There's no real reason why he needs to play his hand for Vander and the kids. There are other ways they could have done it, but ultimately I agree with them doing it here because it has so much more dramatic tension. In revealing this to the audience at the same time as the characters just realizing this is a trap, it builds up the tension of that scene really well. Because Silco could have said this to his henchmen, just naturally, what's your plan? This is my plan. But instead he explains it. And he says is that like Vander and his children disappearing, abandoning. I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially says that's his plan. Is like, you know, he's saying this is what the story is going to be. We're going to kill you all, but feed the story that you ran away like a coward. And so remember, because Silco needs Vander out of the picture. If he just kills Vander, that's a martyr that no one will trust him.
But do we know that he was going to kill Vander? Like, did he? Because if he was going to kill Vander, he could have done it at any point.
Yeah. But he needed Vander as bait, basically, to bring the kids in, and then he wants to kill them all.
Okay.
Granted, I mean, he probably could have killed Vander and just left him in the chair and brought the kids in anyway.
And then just killed. Like, why did he have to?
Leave him alive.
Everything.
Well, and he did. That's for the audience. He explained it for the audience because his ultimate plan is now that they're all there, he wants to kill them all, cover it up.
That's the thing, though. Like, I don't think Silco would have killed him and the kids. I don't think it was capable.
I think he would have. I think he would have.
Think about it though. Based off everything else that we know about the show, he had been very merciful to people who were going to.
You know why I think he would have?
Why?
Because he almost killed Powder, but then he chose not to at the end. He had the knife, and there's even that scene where he's got his hands up, and it's like he doesn't even know what he's going to do. And then he ends up embracing Powder at the end, and it's like a surprise to him. And so I think his full intent was to kill them, but he isn't even aware of the side that still has mercy in himself, and that surprises him when he basically adopts Powder. And it's a great arc as well. It shows that he's got more nuance and is not just this evil villain. But I really do think his intention was to kill them all, hide the bodies, and then, because now Vander hasn't just disappeared, because if he killed Vander, the kids are still there, and then if Silco tried to tell everyone Vander ran away like a coward, everyone who knows Vander knows he would never abandon his kids. His kids are still here. No, he didn't run away. And so if you're going to take out Vander, you need to remove the kids with him, because Vander will never leave his kids. So that's why he ultimately kept alive at first. He could have killed himself, but I think you can let this one slide. And then...
Well, adopting Powder was a smarter move then, because, like, if he did... Wait, how did they explain that he died then to the people?
Well, see, he ultimately gets what he wanted, because Milo and Clagger are dead. Vi gets arrested, and so the upper city gets their powdered flesh. And then he probably keeps Powder hidden, and then...
No, everyone knows about Powder.
Only in his group. I think for the larger people, he doesn't let them know that Powder's alive.
Well, the barman, and we are getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but the barman knows.
Does he? Well, I'd have to keep watching.
Yeah.
But there's a number of reasons why I think Silco could try and sell it even after it didn't go the way he wanted. His ultimate plan was to kill them all, tell them that he ran away like a coward, and then take control. But now Vander is legitimately dead. The kids, 2 of the kids dead. Vi's gone. He has control of Powder. He kind of gets what he wants, and he can take control that way. But see, that means they thought about this. Like, instead of... Because Silco kept Vander alive when the mutant first attacked him. And that was the plot. It makes sense. There is logical structure to it all. And what I also really like is that there was a question I did have in episode 3 when Silco appears and is ready to like kill everyone, and then he sends the goons in, and then Vi, like, it's such an epic moment where Vi steps up and takes them on, right? But I was wondering, is that really the best tactic you could do? Because I was like, if you really wanted to kill him, you're at distance, pull out guns, shoot them all. The thing is, though...
Do they have guns?
Yeah, you don't... In these episodes, you don't really see anyone in the underworld having guns.
Yeah, it's only the people up
But
top.
even the enforcers up top, they have those things that they throw that wrap around. Like when at the first episode, when Vi and those are trying to run away from the enforcers, that none of them have guns.
Maybe the guns are strictly controlled.
I think this is showing that guns are actually more regulated, controlled, and they only come in. They did certainly have guns because Caitlin, you see a training scene with a gun with the police chief lady
And you see
captain.
it at the very beginning when there's the revolution happening. They shoot people.
But they really do show guns. Like even in the underworld, a lot of the criminals, none of them have guns. Like that deal scene where the guy with the glasses is trying to get exchange something, and the bad guys, shifty guys are there, and the lady, she pulls out a knife. None of them has guns. All the underworld seems to just have.
If it was set in America, it'd be a very different story.
So there is a way to explain it that maybe they just didn't have guns, okay? And so he needs to send them in to just take them out hand to hand. And Vi, it's her hero moment. She gets up and again, she's doing what she saw what Vander would do, right? And it's a powerful moment where they legitimately need more time to get Vander out of the restraints. And so she has to buy time. She knows she probably won't win. But she doesn't even, and again, this is why the characters are written so well. She's nowhere near a Mary Sue. This is why the suspense is so great. She doesn't even know she's going to win. I don't know she was going to win when she gets up. It's a hero moment. She could have been beaten down, but she ends up, and so remember that really big guy with the tattoos? That's the guy she's first fighting. And like, it's really showing that there's a difference here. This is why the writing's good. I didn't know she was going to win or not. Yeah. And when there's that suspense, I'm hooked in. Show me what's going to happen. And then the fact that she takes out the guy with one, metalled punch, it's like she's surprised by it as well. She didn't even know her true capabilities, but but it's already been set up. She's been training, she's been practicing, she's got skills, but she's never been tested to her limit to see what that is. And this is like the moment where she finds out what her lengths and strengths are. And that first knockout punch, you get a close-up of Silco, and he's surprised. Like, he wasn't even aware. And so it shows that he thought this was going to be more... Because usually, like, don't you hate it when villains just... They let the heroes off easy?
Yeah.
They don't... So, in this sense... Silco is actually working off of limited knowledge. He had no idea Vi was that tough. He thought the only one who can really fight worth a damn is Vander. He's locked up. These kids are going to be nothing. Send in my goons. It's going to take a problem. And then she knocks out that first guy, and his surprise is like, oh, this is not what I expected.
And also, he kept back Savika, which is smart, because that's his backup.
Yep.
And also...
and he did have a backup.
Yeah.
Like, Vi takes... the choreography in that scene is just so good. The fighting, there's great flow to it. And it continually is good, because then, it switches back to, like, Powder trying to sneak in, Milo trying to undo the lock. There's even, like, a switch to Jace trying to figure out the magic stuff. And then back to Vi, and there's a part where she's attacked by a knife, and the choreography, she's dodging, and it's set up perfectly because we saw her doing those dodges on the practice dummy, and then she takes out every single one of the normal goons. It's like, damn, that's awesome, and it's believable. It's none of this Mary Sue can win at everything, because guess what? Silco has a backup.
Yeah.
Gets the guy to take the mutant juice.
Well, that's why I'm still, like, wondering. I don't think he was going to kill him, because he sent his goons, even after his big one got knocked out in one punch, right? He sent them in one at a time, and only when they were exhausted did he...
Well, it's funny. I think, yeah, because I remember when...
Maybe he was actually going to send them off.
I don't think so. I think he did want to kill him, but I think he was intrigued by Vi, because when What's-Her-Face goes to try and fight him, he holds her back, and I think that was partly one. He didn't want to risk her losing, and she probably could have beaten Vi, by the way. Yeah. She's really tough. But two, I think he also wanted to see what she was really capable of, his intrigue, like, because he was surprised. This girl is way tougher than I thought. But he does send in the mutant, and he doesn't call off the mutant at all. And so, I think his intent was to kill him.
To be fair, it's shown that the mutant can kill men in one swipe, in one charge.
There is a weird part that happens with the mutant. Right? The mutant's coming in, so this is what happens. Vi basically is like, she's ready, she's going to take on the mutant anyway. She runs up, she jumps on the side, and there's that big kind of slow-mo movement where she's going down to hit him like that.
And he grabs her.
And the mutant just grabs her by the throat. There is a bit of a confusing moment, and I do have this as a criticism. He could have snapped her neck, choked her out at that moment, and he chooses to throw her away.
That's why I think that he wasn't trying to kill them.
See, I don't know. I think you could explain it with arrogance. I think they could have done it a lot better. Vi could have punched his arm and get him to release her and stuff. Because at that moment, Vi knows she can't beat this mutant guy. He's way too tough. And so she's trying to get away. And he's just walking up to her, like, savoring the fear. Because remember, this is the guy that Vi beat up in the first episode.
Yeah.
So he's loving that he's getting to smack Vi down.
But do you think it would be a better explanation that Silco really didn't want to kill him, or that the bad guys made so many mistakes after actually luring him there?
I don't think there are huge mistakes. I think first Silco thought the goons would be able to handle him. He was surprised by Vi, but he has a backup, the mutant. The mutant was going to do the job. From Silco's perspective, because this is also really good, when Vi is trying to escape and get away, the mutant thinks he's got it all under control. There's no way she's going to get away. And only when she starts to shut the door does the mutant realize there's a door, and he reacts to it. They show him he's reacting, and then he runs to try and stop her, but he notices it too late, and the door gets closed.
Yeah, but it's just...
The timing is really well done.
It's just the fact that this thing can kill in one single swipe, and he didn't, I'm thinking that his plan wasn't actually... Maybe his plan was literally just make them disappear from the city, leave, and then he'll take over the city.
I think at this point it was killed. He wanted him dead.
I disagree.
Alright, let us know in the comments, but I really do think that was, because then the mutant is beating down, and this is the, like...
To your perspective, was he almost through when the bomb exploded? Because I saw the door breaking.
No, I think the door's going to hold off a bit longer, but the tragic moment of this scene, and again, this is why the writers have such balls, is Clagger, he broke down the wall, Vander got free of his restraints just at the moment the bomb goes off. They were free. They were ready to thing, and it really does, like, this is why they have balls. Powder does ruin everything. It is like, she's trying to, and I love it because she's trying to help and she's so sincere. She thinks she's going to save everyone, and she cannot see that Vander is free and they got the wall open, and she thinks that they're still in trouble.
Well, that's why I don't think it's entirely her fault.
Well, I know that it wasn't her intention, but she did cause it. Like, she set the bomb in. Like, and this is why, again, the writers have such balls for it, because all her intentions were pure and good. It's perfectly in line to her character, and it is ultimately leading to devastation, and it's set up beautifully. This is the natural result of events. You can see it perfectly logically play out, and the results, because she not only puts one of those magical bombs, she puts two other ones in the thing, and so there's actually three of them. And so she does way too much overkill. It's because she's naive. She doesn't understand the levels of power she's dealing with.
They haven't worked up until then, did they?
No.
Her machines, but she was like, I know you can work this time, and she was trying to fix them and stuff. And this is why it's so good, because usually in this arc, this would be the moment where she would save everyone, where this is her winning moment where she finally gets her machine to work, and it does work, and it just ruins everything.
Who knew that setting off explosives near your loved ones could be dangerous?
It shows such weaknesses and flaws in her, because she's still young, she hasn't perfected the thing, she didn't know the levels of power that she's dealing with. She thought she was helping, and she legitimately gets Milo and Clagger killed, and Vander, of course, he doesn't die, but then Vander and Vi get injured and trapped, and the entire thing goes up. This is where what's her name loses her arm because she protects. She protects Silco.
A note on Savika: the voice actress actually died.
What, really?
Yeah, she died, so she won't be in season 2.
Oh, that's tragic.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Of course, you haven't noticed spoilers, by the way. But you should have known this coming in.
Yeah.
It was so good. And when I first watched this episode, I was like, "That's it, I'm hooked. I'm watching this to the end." It was just like, when I say brave writing, it's like
stunning and brave.
No, it's true that they're willing to show these main characters fail drastically. So
yeah, well, that's where good writing comes from. It comes from following rules, but trusting the audience when you can take these sorts of risks where you do kill important characters. You know,
and I have to This is a lot of backstories for a lot of characters, but it is also the backstory for Jinx. And this is one of the most sophisticated backstories I've ever seen written for the crazy character.
Yeah,
right?
It was actually earned.
It was earned. And they show her mental instability at the opening of episode 1. That's how much the setup is. Ready? When you see the enforcers shooting people, at the moment the gun explodes, you see a flash of the Jinx artwork. You see a flash of the Jinx artwork around the enforcer like he's a devil bear, and then it goes back to normal.
Yeah.
And so in Trauma, you are seeing this, and we know that, like, we ultimately do discover that this is from Powder's perspective, that in Trauma, when she's dealing with really serious things, she's not wholly stable. It's affecting her. And they show that where she's very insecure, she's trying to win, and she's pushing herself, yet she's getting affected emotionally by her failures, she feels she's not getting accepted, and this really comes out when Vi leaves her behind in episode 3.
Oh, man.
That scene where she's losing it, she's crying, and
that animation and everything about it.
Like, what's incredible? Like, yes, you're right. The animation and the acting, and literally whoever did the
voice acting,
not only voice acting, but the expression of the characters and
the
movement,
rigging and
it's masterful.
Yeah,
some of the best I've ever seen. And so when you see Powder losing it, it goes beyond. She's screaming. She starts to hit her head. Because she wants to help so badly, yet she knows she's not allowed, or and she's not good enough. And then she's going nuts, and you see that instability that is there. And then she drops the case that has the stones in it, right? Because at one point, I was going to put this as a criticism, but the writers are aware, and they're aware of this stuff. Where in episode 2 or 1 it was, Vi says, she says that it still has the magical blue things. And Vi's like, do you know what they do? And Powder says, no, I don't know what they do. And when I heard that, because I was rewatching it, I forgot what happened. I was like, how does she know to use them as bombs then if she doesn't know what they do?
Because she saw.
It's this scene here. When she drops them, she sees them hit the ground and become unstable and start to shoot the electric things. And then she remembers what happened at the penthouse, and she puts 1 and 2 together. That's the thing that caused the explosion. These are mini bombs. They're aware of it. They show her moment of clarity, and then she says, I can help. And that's what And the thing is, though, we see her already unstable emotionally, and then she actually causes the death of her father and 2 brothers. What more powerful thing to tip an unstable person over the edge than that? Oh my goodness.
And to be blamed for it.
But she blames her, and because Vi, it's tragic, it's heartbreaking, and it's so true. Like, Vi is legitimately angry with her. She knows Powder caused it. 1, she sees the head of the little bomb thing in the rubble, and so she knows that's Powder's thing. And then Powder comes out saying, I did it, I won. And she's like, you caused this? And then, from Vi's perspective, Powder just got Vander killed, and Milo and Clagger, and so she snaps and it's like, I told you to stay behind. She slaps her. It's perfectly justified. It's heartbreaking because she didn't mean it, yet poor Vi is heartbroken and she's dealing with it, yet she's trying to, because then she instantly regrets it. After she hits Powder, she looks at her fist, and it's like a reflection to Vander's line where he says, he holds up Vi's hand and says, this only causes more problems, or something like that.
Yeah, but also, Vander's last words were, take care of Powder.
But the thing is, I can understand it, though, because this is her dad, and Powder just got him killed, basically.
Well, where does the buck stop, though? Because if Vi listened to him and stayed out of it, it would have just been him that was kidnapped.
This is true, and I think all that conflict is around, but ultimately, you see someone that you're blaming and you would react like, but she's fighting against it because she, first, it was so tragic because Powder's just saying, I need you, don't leave me. Vi can't deal with it. She walks away. But the thing is, when she sees Powder in trouble, because Silco's there, she instantly snaps to try and help her, but that's when she gets arrested. And it's
bloody cop, Marcus.
It's heartbreaking. But the thing is, though, that's in line with what the enforcers are trying to do. They want someone to blame. There's the pound of flesh. It was all set up, and so he needs to grab anyone to vindicate this disaster. His, boss just got killed, and so they need a scapegoat. That's her. Bang, he grabs her, and he gets a promotion out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is set up so well.
Wait a minute, why was he there?
He had already met Silco at that location previously.
Oh, and he saw the explosion too.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, they saw the explosion.
They thought of everything!
here's another example of the foresight the writers have and how talented they are, okay? Vander gets kidnapped. In a lot of poorly written shows, the heroes, we need to save him, let's go save him, and they just go directly to where the bad guys are, and it's like, how did you know where they were? You just go and save them.
Yep.
And so, back at the their kind of hideout, I think it's Clagger says, do you know where they were taken, or something like that? And this is, like, I have a big note where I have written,
Wasn't it
thank
Echo
you.
who followed them?
Yes, and this is one of those things where I have a video talking about rule of cool and how it can be unbalanced and stuff on Shadowversity, that there are problems, plot holes that exist that you can fix with a single line oftentimes. This is a perfect example of someone doing it. And where is my note where I say I have like, here it is. So Clagger asks, do you know where they took him? And her instant response, it's such a simple line, it answers it perfectly. Echo followed him, the old cannery next to the docks. It's as simple as that. And it's already established that Echo follows people. He's done it multiple times. And so he's like this little sneaky, person. And it's perfectly justified. It's answered in a single line. But guess what? Who's in the room when she says that? Powder's in the room. And therefore, Powder knows how to find them as well.
Yeah.
It's satisfying, isn't it?
so good?
It's crazy that guys who make video games like manage to create this. Yet, like people who made Star Wars can't follow a single consistent thing for like 45 minutes.
The contrast is stark. But this is just writers who are aware of the story they're telling. They're aware that X needs to lead to the obvious conclusion, okay? Yeah. And so it's just a mathematical equation that you can just plot out perfectly to get X leading to Y, what you need all the events to play out, and it's just... And then the thing is, though, this is a multi-layered story where you see Powder going through a thing, Vander going through his thing, Vi going through a thing, setting it up perfectly, and of course it's intertwined with what's happening in Piltover with Jason stuff, and... it's just done so well. This is what talent can produce. Yeah. This is what has been missing in media so much, and and then this it is stands as almost like a stark contrast, like a condemnation on the Star Wars sequels. Episode 5 of Wheel of Time is like all this garbage that dumb writers who are unaware of basic things.
Yeah. It's a breath of fresh air, but like if you were drowning, like this show is like, honestly, when I heard about it, I'm like, oh, okay, Netflix, I know what it's going to be like. But then you're like, no, dude, up to episode 3, after that it's great. I'm like, okay, fine. First scene, I'm like, okay, this is going to be good. Then episode 2, I'm like, what? It was, oh man. And now just reflecting on it, it was done so well. Dare we say perfect?
There are minor. I was looking for things to criticize, and I was very hard to find anything. And the more I'm looking closer, the more I'm seeing things that are impressing me.
A funny fact, Shad.
What's that?
How long do you think this took to make?
I don't know.
Show?
I don't know.
6 years.
6
really?
years. That's a labour of love.
It took 6 years. I'm guessing a few years of pre-production, storyboarding and stuff, but. I think this also shows time.
They didn't rush it.
Yeah.
They took the time to work out any kinks, problems that might have arisen. Because I wonder if that was a thing where, Vi needs to go save Vander, and they already had written, but someone's like, oh, how did they know where they are? Yeah. It's like, oh, quickly, let's throw in a simple line and done.
Yeah.
But that means that if something like that happened, that means they're looking at it critically. You have to look at your own work critically to try and preempt any plot holes that you accidentally, inadvertently put into the story, and then you can fix it so easily, and then you have this very clear, structured story where things are making sense and it's justified. And so we've been praising the story, how they've been setting up the events one after another, and we'll try and go to any of the points that we missed when we go things, but I like that we're just kind of jumping naturally. But where I want us to start talking about naturally next is the characterizations. We've talked about the characterization of Vander and what a great father figure and role model he is and how it sets up Vi's arc as well. But there is this what I love about this show, I don't love it because of this. I love it because they did this and executed it well. Some of their two main characters are two female characters. And if you want to see a great example of showing proper, great, strong female characters, look right here, okay?
Especially Vi.
Vi is brilliant.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, why I love this particularly because it's such a good example, is Vi is a bit of a tomboy, okay?
Yeah.
She's tough, yet they don't actually make her wholly masculine. She has some very distinct feminine characteristics and sensibilities, and there's this gentle side to her, and there's parts where she when she comes back after Vander gets kidnapped, right? She almost breaks down emotionally and she starts crying. And then they give justice to Clagger and Milo because they come right and then they basically say, we're here for you, we're going to help you out. And they're being the strong arm for her to cry on in that scene. And so they give justice to those characters. They let Vi show some vulnerability, okay? And because so often with these dumb shows where they have like the strong female characters, like no, they have to be strong, they can never show any weakness, and you can't have a man save him, right? How many times does Vander save Vi in this episode? Like more than once, like where he sacrifices almost 3 separate times. Yet because they show Vi like not perfect, she's struggling, everything, the moment where she stands up to protect everyone else is just so much more powerful as a result. And she's a far more heroic character than Rey has ever been. What has
Dude, I forgot she existed for a
seriously,
second. What
has Rey sacrificed or risked, like where it honestly felt like she could lose or get beaten down? Was there any scene that you think, well, like she's not... Obviously, she's going to win. She's the ultimate Rey.
To be fair, she did disintegrate Kylo Ren to gain his life force, so she sacrificed a boy toy, you know? Like,
I mean,
she stole someone's name.
And so I saw this great meme. I love it. Maybe we can get it up. But it has, and again, there are so many horribly written female characters where the writers have no idea. It's like they have to be perfect, they have to be strong and everything.
That's
and
masculine.
So you see, like there's this image of Teela from Master of the Universe Revelations, and the caption is, she's got this look, she's like, who are you? And then there's a picture of Vi, and she's like, I'm you, but done right. I'm like, yes! Yes!
I think every character in this is my favorite character. Like every main character is just done so well.
There are actually a couple of characters I didn't like as much, and one I kind of dislike.
Who?
Jace.
You dislike Jace? I love Jace.
I kind of dislike Jace. I found him a bit weak, very manipulatable, wishy-washy, and ultimately came off as a weak character to me. I think...
But why though?
Because everyone is telling him what to do, and he doesn't have a strong goal that is always... He has a goal, but he's allowing himself to be pushed either way of the wind, and he doesn't know, and then he gets really manipulated, and then...
Manipulated how?
Oh, especially by the female councilwoman. She sacks up with him to try and get his ear and
well, that came after, but this wasn't that...
I mean, he wanted to... Remember, we're getting into later episodes, so we'll talk about later, but just on a broader topic, series as a whole, I actually didn't like Jace. I think he was done well in terms of the arc, but my own subjective taste, I found him... bit of a weak, manipulatable character. I didn't really like it.
I saw him as a science man who was willing to actually limit himself, who didn't want to go too far.
See, that's to me, it come off a bit because he wanted to push himself far, but he was allowing someone to rein him in, and then it was like he didn't want to cause issues, but no, we have to deal with the underworld, and then he goes to fight, and there's no, I don't want to fight, and all this stuff is like, come on, man. Anyway, so
well, when you put it that way, sure, but for me, it was more like he's addressing the situation as it comes and trying to make the best decision, and that's a hard thing to do.
Look, it might be a hot take that people might like Jace. He just did not work with me.
I liked his partner too.
So Heimerdinger is a bit on and off for me. We might talk a little because Heimerdinger, I had some questions in episode 2 in regards to him, but it later got justified. So anyway, but going back to the characterization point, right? These are strong female characters that in many aspects are still feminine, okay? They're not just these butch men, with boobs basically, like they do so often with other characters. And and I'm not saying guys can't be vulnerable or anything, but guys stereotypically process it differently to girls, okay? And this show actually shows very, like with Vi especially, and especially Powered Up, very feminine ways of usually processing emotions and difficulties and stuff like that. Because there are moments of distinct, weakness and vulnerability that Vi shows that gives her, and she has a gentle side. She's really affectionate towards Powder, and then she's trying to be a leader at the same time. She's trying to emulate Vander, and she is a tomboy, but they don't go like I love it that there is such, because Vi is very much a tomboy, strong character, and it shows clear mastery that they can execute this archetype without doing what everyone else has done and made her just an overly butch, because they think to be strong you always have to be like strong male heroes.
Yeah,
stuff like
disagreeable, hateful, stuff like
exactly. You can be a very strong female hero character and still be feminine, okay? And there seems to be, because we see it so much where so many of these strong female characters in other shows are basically acting like stereotypical men
and just dicks,
female and
dicks.
It's like why are you trying to, it's like these people that are trying to push female characters actually have something against femininity.
They do
it feels like it, doesn't it?
It's a classic case of projection. Men are toxic, yet we're going to make the females toxic, I mean,
and men and women need each other, and there is this aspect because women on average mature earlier than men, and men need, this is why it's good for men to get into good stable relationships, get married, get responsibility and stuff like that, to help us wake up and grow up a bit sooner than what we might naturally do, and get out of the basement and stuff, and be men. And honestly, having a good woman in their life is one of the greatest means to help men reach that pinnacle, okay?
Yeah, the animal.
And so there is this wonderful, honestly, kind of civilizing effect that a good woman in a man's life can have and make them better than what they were on their own. And I'm not saying it's a universal thing, but I'm saying it pretty broadly, but there are exceptions to every standard that you can propose, is what I'm saying. And so going back to this, Vi is has this gentle side to her. She's done so well. And then with Powder, they let Powder be very feminine throughout the whole thing. She's aggressive, but she's unstable, and it goes along the lines. But they also let her appear very feminine and attractive. It's just done very well on many levels, is what I'm saying. And I even think Vi is probably a lesbian.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
It's pretty clear. But she still has a feminine side. I mean, they're doing justice to...
Well, lesbians are still women.
Yeah, exactly. And so they don't go into the stereotype of there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so perhaps talking about many broad things and also specific things, because the natural conversation, let's go into the minutiae a bit. Starting with episode 1, we already talked about that right out of the gate. They established Vander as this heroic, noble father figure, sacrificing himself, taking on responsibility, looking after, and it's like there's these poor girls, their parents literally just died
because of Vander.
Well, we don't actually know. I thought it was the Enforcers.
Apparently he was the one that helped lead the...
Yeah, but I think it was the Enforcers that actually...
Yeah, no doubt the Enforcers killed him, but he led them. He was their leader, and that's why he said it's on you. Because when he saw them dead and realised that he was the leader of that situation, it's on him. So, yeah.
But I love that the girls... in this vulnerable moment, they need something strong to cling on to just get them through this difficult thing. And you see Vander holding them, and they're just holding onto him for dear life because their world has just been turned upside down. And then there's this man who will look after them, and they cling. And what the contrast between that is in the end of episode 3, where Powder is more vulnerable than she's ever been before. She's losing it. She can't do anything. And then Silco comes in. And she literally jumps into his and just holds on to him in a vice grip because she's falling apart. She's literally falling, in terms of mentally, and she needs something to hold on to. She thinks she's just been abandoned by Vi, who ultimately was trying to come back to her, but then got stopped. And so she'll reach out and grab anything that's stable, and it happens. Well, Silco's right there, and it just goes to show you that children. That's when they have bad role models. When they need stability, they'll grab onto something stable that they'll look up to and help them get through difficult times. And when it's bad, it can have devastating, results because we ultimately see what happens to Powder. But it's an interesting contrast that she reaches out and grabs someone just like in the beginning of the first episode, and then this time it's Silco, and it's like, oof. Yeah. Okay, so the opening scene where they're busting into the penthouse and stuff.
Yeah.
It establishes the characters well. Like, I mean, it's effective. It wasn't phenomenal. It didn't blow me away, but it did what it needs to do, where Vi, she's trying to prove herself. Powder is very insecure and still growing up. She's still stumbling and everything like that. Powder's trying to give her encouragement. Milo's being very critical because he's getting fed up for some justified reasons.
What was his...
Because Powder screws things up a lot. And guess what? She caused the explosion here.
If you go by what Vander said, you know, who you bring, it's on you.
Yeah.
It's Vi's fault.
Yeah, but you can understand why Vi is trying to teach Powder.
Yeah, it's understandable, but it is
but
it's
this
her
is why,
chain of
But you
events.
can also understand Milo, why he's blaming Powder.
Yeah, you know, I'd say that's a character flaw to blame a little kid who's brought along.
Well, look,
to the job.
again, imperfect characters. But,
but I'm saying, like, I think it's wrong to blame her. I'd blame Powder.
Yeah,
Sorry, Vi.
There are some very subtle things, even in early on, again, showing the writers are aware and they know what they're doing. So when they're looking through the gear, right, Milo's like, look what I found. And Powder says, that's a nose hair trimmer. And he's like, oh. And it shows that Powder knows what mechanical things are. She's actually, and there are multiple signs throughout these episodes that are just establishing Powder's base skills, where she's growing and going up and moving into.
She's a tinkerer.
She's a tinkerer. She builds stuff. And so she understands what these mechanical doodads are better than the other ones, not perfectly. In the funhouse, she's the one that is always fixing the machines to keep them working. And you actually see her get the... there is a bit of an issue... So jumping to when they're in the funhouse in episode 2, where she fixes the machine, she like puts it together, it finishes, and you see Milo try and shoot and he misses, and then she picks up the toy gun and just nails everything.
Yeah.
And Milo tries to brush it off that she rigged it to win, but honestly, anyone who sees that would acknowledge that is damn good.
Yeah.
Why haven't they given her a gun yet? She's nowhere near as incompetent as people think.
Well, to be
Milo's
fair,
brushing
no
off.
one has a gun there.
That's kind of the answer.
Everyone down there could benefit
It
from a gun.
seems like guns are very regulated at this point in the story, and they couldn't have gotten it to her. But I still think they could have acknowledged that she's nowhere near as competent as, you know, she's got some real serious skills. And obviously that was a sign, a little Chekhov's gun on thing to say she's going to be growing up into a total badass.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to set that up. And even in this episode where she's knowing what the gadgets are, they're setting it up. The writers are aware. They know where the story is going. So therefore, they're doing the proper establishment work you need to build the right foundation to have the stories hold up when we get there. It's great. Okay, the escape when they're running away from the force in episode 1. Like, again, it didn't feel easy. Like they had to earn it. And so
they go down a poo pipe.
Go down a poo pipe. That was something that they didn't want to do, but they always get caught at some moments. Vi knocks a little thing off so steam, you know, blocks their escape. Just small little clever things like that are good. And then they get into the fight. And this is probably one of the highlight moments for episode 1, apart from another moment. But the fight was done great. They get it. They don't dominate. They're getting beaten up. They're taking hits. They're struggling and everything. But they're showing that they know how to handle themselves. There is a bit of a conflict where Vi does so much better in the fight in episode 3 compared to this fight. And she's fighting way stronger people, way more competent, and she's knocking them down. People might say it's because she has the gauntlet, so one hit is
And also
solid
because
enough.
when she was fighting the goons in episode 3, they were all coming at her in a straight line because of the walkway, and she had the things that could be used to block stuff. And
So you could try and justify it. I still think if Vi was good enough, even with gauntlets, to take on like well-trained goons that are much older and stronger than her, this fight probably shouldn't have been as difficult.
Just the narrow pathway. Like you have, because I've done a bit of Krav Maga, and trying to keep track of where people are around you in a fight is a pain in the ass because you have to manage so much. But when they're coming straight at you, it's so much easier. So much easier.
Well,
hard, but still.
The strong moment in this scene is after they win the fight and the guy pulls out a knife, Vi just walks up and it's a great line. She says, "You want to see where that'll end?" Or something like that. Yeah, you want to see how that ends? And it's just her eyes dead on him. The animation, I don't think we've praised the animation enough.
It's done by a French company called Fortiche. They've been working with League of Legends people for ages, and they're incredible.
It's some of the most beautiful animation I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. What I love, is just glorious about this. They did the textures on all the surfaces like it's a illustrated painting.
Yeah.
You could pause this show at any time, and you would have thought it was a 2D illustration.
Yep.
It's flawless. It's glorious. The animation is just, and when they combine that with how realistic the movements and motions are and expressions, like I was honestly watching episode 1 mostly to enjoy the animation.
Yeah.
That's what really hooked me at the beginning, and that carried me through. But there were some good moments. Don't get me wrong. But like I said, episode 1 didn't just wow me. Like holy crap, that's amazing. I thought it was okay. But the animation's gorgeous. I'm going to keep watching.
It wowed me at the beginning when it showed Vander and that, and then at the end when it showed Silco. I was like, yeah, this is a show to watch. And it just literally kept getting better.
It did.
And it keeps getting better. And it doesn't stop.
That's been my experience. After episode 3, I was like, I'm on board.
Yeah.
It just gets better and better and better.
Like exponentially, basically. Like it's, yeah, definitely probably. The only time I've seen writing like on this level is probably Breaking Bad. Like, have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah, it's our first season or so.
First season of Breaking Bad? It's like, it's good. But
I know it's
this is something else, you know?
Another thing, even early on, that shows the writers are mature. They're not sunken into this idea that the heroes have to always win, especially if they're girls, because we can't have the girls lose or be saved by men. Like, seriously, look at Wheel of Time. Okay?
Every problem is fixed by women.
Has any female in that show been saved by a man?
Nope.
Like, apart from Moraine and Lan, the water, all right, that's the only exception by the waters, but the main cast... You know, like has Matt, Perrin, or Rand saved any woman in the show so far?
No.
And if they can point out a single example, counter that to all the other times. And so this show is just trying to Arcane is just trying to make a good show. They don't care about any of this ideological bullcrap. I didn't even notice anything. It's just a great show with some really awesome underlining themes. And also there's some tragic moments in it, and so...
But they do have a legacy to live up to. Like, this is based off League of Legends, a very popular game. And also, I think this is the first and best, like, well-done video game movie
property
TV show.
ever. Period.
Yeah.
Like, it is definitely the best video game-based show I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Have there been other good video game... I think there was one, but I can't remember what it was.
I like the Doom movie, even though it sucks.
We had Sonic, which was
Sonic was actually
and there was also
enjoyable.
The Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Which
I didn't watch that yet.
It was a fun time. It had moments in it.
I could see why people enjoy it.
They also have the Dota Netflix series. Did you watch that?
Yes, I did.
Was it
Oh,
good?
good?
It was barely tolerable. Okay. But that's it. That's me just if I was to watch it critically, I'm pretty sure it'll be pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was hard to get through. I wasn't hooked. And contrasting it to Arcane, it's like night and day.
You can't contrast anything, I feel like.
I play Dota. I don't play League of Legends, and I will say the Dota animation compared to this one, don't even try. Like if you try, like Dota comes up like this piece of crap in comparison to how good Arcane is. Like, oh.
When is season 2 coming?
That's
I don't want to wait 5 years.
If it took 6 years to make the last one, part of me wants them to spend that time making it good.
But what you always say is a sequel is much easier than an original.
I would be, look, honestly, take as much time as you need just to make a good show.
Yeah, but the world might end before then.
I'll be happy to wait another 6 years if it's going to be, if it needs to be that long to be this good.
6 years goes by quickly. Because
when looking back,
because when they announced that they're making Arcane, the first Star Wars prequel had come out. Sequel had come out. Prequel. No.
Well, I'm glad I didn't hear a thing about it and just dropped it while I got to enjoy it.
So
what I was saying before, how they're not buying into any of this stuff, it shows early on in this episode where this is probably the strongest emotional, apart from, like the knife scene, is when Powder is confronted by the guy and she has to drop the loot to get away. I was like, man, they weren't really... I was bummed by that. I felt it. That sucked.
Yeah.
But it shows they're willing to show the characters lose and fail. And these issues that they're, failing, it just builds the tension to make the wins more satisfying. And that one, I did feel it. I was like, man, that sucks. It's like, Milo Riley gets stuck into it. You drop the loot, and he's complaining. But then Vi, pulls him up and says, why did you say we had a good haul? Because when they're walking past those guys, it's like, Powder's my problem. Your problem is that you don't know when to shut your mouth. Great. These are great lines. And she says, from now on, this is the expression I have. I'm paraphrasing now because I don't remember, that means shut your mouth. But... And then he's like, and the expression and the portrayal, just the I think was done perfectly. I actually laughed. I was like, that is so... the animation is just top notch.
And I'm sure you guys can empathise with what it's like to have someone who won't stop running their mouth around.
And won't shut up. And,
Yeah.
And they won't get the message.
Yeah. That must be hell. I'd kill that guy, honestly.
Yeah, too. Okay, so I do have a question in this episode. Vander, he approaches them, he gives them the, it's like, I know what you did, basically, and he sends them out, and he sits Vi down. It's a great conversation where, all the things we talked about responsibility, about, here's the example and stuff, but he gets a bag and starts filling it with random stuff, and I was like, why is he doing that?
I think I can answer
All right,
that.
answer, because what he does, he basically is taking it as an excuse to visit, like his mate, he sells stuff and everything, but I'm like, you don't need an excuse to visit.
Yeah, it could be throwing the scent off of his kids, because think about it, he's just heard, half the underworld had heard about this thing that just happened up top, and so they know that it's his kids, so he's like, okay, well, if a job's just been done, they're going to be looking for people who did it. I'm gonna take the stolen stuff.
Ah, that's a good explanation.
And then the cops literally meet him there
while he's selling stuff.
Yeah,
that's a great answer. I wish they'd explain it in the show, but maybe I think as you point that out, there seems to be enough subtlety, like things, but actually there to validate that explanation.
I think the best thing the show does is it shows and not tells you.
Yeah,
there are a number of times where it actually just shows something like that. I think I even pointed one out, but now I can't remember what it was. But yeah, and so that could be...
Even right there, as soon as they get back having failed, he's ready to like throw himself onto the pyre.
Yeah. So really good, but also something I liked is when he gets out and he runs into Milo and Clagger, is actually a bit harder on Milo and Clagger. He takes Milo's like listening thing, puts in his like, hey, and is like, the consequences when you come back from a job, you're supposed to offer up something from it. And this is the thing, I'm not sure if you've ever experienced raising children. I have 5, okay? So this is the reality. Sometimes boys do need a harder hand.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And I actually kind of like that. He had to, Vi is a leader, so he has to be really careful trying to teach and stuff like that. But sometimes the boys, they just need a good
because
in line.
That's how men will, that's how men learn. We learn through physical.
But we're not saying
beat the crap out of
We're
them.
not saying beat the crap out, but sometimes boys do need a firmer hand, okay, to get them to step in line. And I kind of like that. It seemed like this show was demonstrating that. And then this is the part where I think Clagger might be his actual son, where he said, because he gets Clagger to follow him to the shop, and he says, all right, tell me everything that happened. And he trusts Clagger to...
Clagger's the
bigger kid. And he's got a more similar frame. He's got, I think, brown hair, and there's similarity to Vander, so he actually might be Vander's real son.
Okay.
It's not said. I wish they would have. Because, man, it's hard. Like, I get the show has balls, and it's heartbreaking because they spend time... So, Milo and Clagger, they're not throwaway background characters. They actually did spend time to establish them. They have strengths, weaknesses. There's dynamics in the group. I really love the part where both Clagger and Milo support Vi when she gets back after Vander was kidnapped. Like, that's a really great moment for them where they show that they're merciful, they're supportive, but they're strong, also stoic. They're going to support their friend. They trust her. They're willing to look up to her as their leader, but when she's vulnerable and weak, they're there to... It's great. It's great. And also, when they're trying to bust Vander out, they're all doing something really important. They already establish Milo as the lockpicker. At the first episode, he's trying to lock the door and she kicks it open and is like, animals. They set it up perfectly, right? And they set up that Clagger is the strong one. In the fight, he's taking on 2 guys. He's got one in a headlock and everything. And he's a bit of a gentle giant and everything. And so when they're in the thing, Milo is picking the locks to get Vander free, and Clagger starts busting down the wall. They're doing really valuable, important stuff. They're not throwaways. They're essential to the success of the thing.
Well, I feel like Powder did a better job busting down the wall.
Yeah, and then they end up dying, and it's just like, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And I felt it. I was like, whoa, because first you see Clagger basically, he gets hit in the head. Blood flies out and he falls up and he's probably already dead.
Yeah.
But then you see Milo gets thrown aside, getting paled. I'm like, oh, dang. And I'm thinking that, man, that's going to be hard to come back from it. And it's like, we're not done yet. The show is literally just fall dead. Oh, gosh. And you're right. Like, this isn't a throwaway death because it's necessary for the story where Powder has an end goal and they need to justify it. And what happens here is some of the perfect justification to tip her over the edge. And you see her dealing with the death of Clagger and Milo for the rest of the show. Because,
She never got over it.
She never gets over it. She ends up making, dummies like life-size mannequin things of both Clagger and Milo.
Because she still hears them.
And she still talks to them and everything. She can't handle their loss. She can't process that she was the one that killed them, and sends her crazy logically. And again, this is the best set up and backstory for a crazy, unstable character I've ever seen.
It's what Harley Quinn should have been.
It's what Harley Quinn should have been. Because you see legitimate moments of instability, and also when she loses it and she giggles and everything because you can't process what's going on. But they never just let her jump off the deep end where she's crazy. No, you have vulnerability still in her, fears, worries, anger. She's still dealing with it. She's not just full-blown gone crazy in this series, though they can justify it in season 2 because there's a tipping point at the very end, which explains a lot, where she basically embraces the crazy.
Let's not get too far ahead of herself.
Yeah, we can't get too far, but it's set up so it's done so well, and the death of Clagger and Milo is essential for that story arc. And I'm blown. I'm thoroughly impressed. I'm blown away. Like,
so you'd say it's good fridging?
It
wasn't even fridging. They were developed.
They were developed. They were developed.
Because you were shocked.
Even though I think fridging is perfectly justified when done well, like Uncle Ben. Well. Yeah.
Like here.
But this isn't fridging because, well, the thing is though, this is the truth. Those two characters, their primary role in the end is for Powder's development to justify what happens to her. So I would say, and I think I'd be got validity to say this, they were put into the story to die.
Yeah.
The writers knew they created these characters to die solely for Powder's progression and story arc, yet they sold it, they justified it, they made them fleshed out characters, and all that. And so I think even people who are critical of fridging, I'm not, or not universally, would accept that this couldn't qualify.
Yeah.
But I've seen some people call that Black Widow was fridged.
No, what?
Yeah, legitimately, there. I like the people.
She was fridged over the course of 5 movies.
I like the people who made that criticism. I disagree with that. Black Widow was not fridged, but because if that was fridging, then by that same standard, these guys were fridged, and it works so well in the story. It's so powerful, you feel it. And so, no, it's not fridging. Black Widow wasn't fridged. These guys weren't fridged, I just thoroughly impressed, and everything is set up really, really well. There are just small moments that I was like, wow, this is cool, when we first see the Undercity.
Yeah.
Like when it coming down
beautiful.
That elevator.
It's gorgeous.
Oh, gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Oh, it's just...
I was telling this was actually, it's impressive how, like, the contrast between the two seasons is very different, but they are still in the same world.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a Skyrim and a Cyberpunk together, but it doesn't feel like overly different.
And they also do that with the characters. So you know when Vi was locked down on things, seeing Vander get taken away? Mm-hmm. So she's clothed, sorry, not clothed, she's bathed in red light from the blood splash on the window. Mm-hmm. Her colour's red, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you see Echo come downstairs and open the door for her, green light, his colour is green. Like, just these very subtle things, like following the themes through, the things they set up. It's like, this pops like...
Perfect. And one more funny tidbit that I learnt in the first, I told Oz this one as well. Oz gets to know all my information before I tell Shad. That in the opening scene, all the characters' eyes are grey.
Really?
Yep. And so as the story progresses, their eye colour comes in as the character develops.
Because there is a close-up of Powder at the very end when she's holding Vander on her eye, and it's purple. Her eye is purple.
You mean when she's holding Silco?
No, Silco, yeah.
I thought it was blue.
No, it's purple. She gets purple eyes.
Okay.
And then that becomes more stark, like, later.
Yeah.
But I didn't know they were grey. That's
in the opening scene, you can see, like, all of them together, all grey eyes.
Just look at these little...
It just makes it. It makes it.
Attention to detail. This is one of the best shows made...
In a very, very long time.
I'm buying this on Blu-ray. That's how good it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna pay for it too. Because I didn't when I watched it, but I will now. I'll happily pay for this.
No, we've got Netflix, so...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I was
It was not Jack Sparrow, but I would honestly pay for this.
So, There's a little trope that I don't really like, but I'm glad that they didn't lean into it and it just got past. It's the one where someone walks by a conversation or anything at the worst moment possible to hear the exact right thing out of context and then leaves before the context is given. And so it's when Vi is talking with Milo, Powder comes in, and it's when Vi responds to Milo that no, Powder can't do... Powder has issues, but then she leaves... and doesn't hear Powder say, but you're like, and then she contextualizes it, but then that's basically covered in the very, it's so convenient, it annoys me. It's so unrealistic that you would walk by at the exact moment to hear the exact thing that pushes the plot.
Yeah, but if you're a 9-year-old kid and the only person who's actually sticking up for you says that, you'd probably walk away.
No, I think you'd stay and keep listening. You'd be upset.
You would in your current day, but this is like a little girl. She would have been hurt by that.
But the thing is, I'm glad they didn't dwell on it. It gets solved pretty quickly. Vi actually comes to Powder to try and cheer her up. Powder, instead of holding the grudge, keeping it hidden, she just goes out and says, you said this about me. It's like, no, well... And then there's a really great scene, again, showing Vi's affectionate side, where she takes her up on the roof and says, you know... Clagger got stuck in that thing there. Milo tried to paint the thing, fell off, and his bum made the splat, and I got my toy. And so she's showing we've all failed. What a,
That last shot of that with the zoom out of the city and the music and everything's just,
that's so good. And that's the scene where Powder doesn't know what the magic balls were. I have that underlined, but that's contextualized. It's solved there. She learns what they are through the later episodes. And then we get introduced to Silco for the first time. We don't know who he is, but it's a good scene to introduce a villain. It establishes something ominous. He has a plan.
I was already hooked. As soon as I saw Silco, I'm like, yep.
Why?
I don't know what it is, man, about like villains who have a bit of like I don't know, man. I just really like the villain. That's all I can really say. That's all I can say. I don't know why. I really liked him.
I think the scene it was effectively done, where he was like, I told you to follow him. Why'd you, get the thing? And then the guy's in trouble and is like, they were the ones that caused the explosion. And then we show that Silco didn't have full ones, like, they caused the explosion? Vander's kids.
Vander's in trouble.
And Vander's in trouble. And there's some good connection there because... We know he wants to overtake the Undercity.
Yeah.
He needs to get rid of Vander. Now Vander's vulnerable. And then is like, you just said the smartest thing, the other day or something like that. Go give him something to eat.
Give him a meal, yeah.
Again, it shows that isn't like... That actually shows some good nuance to this villain character where he's not just like, you failed, I kill you, meh, meh, meh. It's like, oh, you redeem yourself by giving me some useful information.
Yeah. So that's why, it's stuff like that, that's what I'm talking about. That's why I like him.
Yeah.
He's not entirely mustache-twirling evil.
He has complexity to him. There's multiple sides. And he has a goal that he sees as ultimately noble.
And I'd agree.
This is the thing. A good villain is the one that thinks they're the hero of their own story.
Yeah.
That makes them nuanced and relatable in some sense also. And so they've done that with Silco, and it even gets even more complex as the story progresses.
Yeah.
And so it was an effective introduction for him, and then they reveal they have this evil monster juice. They give it to...
Monster juice.
Yeah.
What if it's literally just like Monster energy drink?
Well, it kind of almost is monster juice that we find out later.
Oh, Shad, you're going too far!
Oh, people have watched this show, I'm assuming.
You see, now you're saying what I would say, and I'm saying what you would say.
I'm not going further into it. But then, they feed it to the rat, and the rat kills the cat, and it's like blood, and end of episode. So that's episode 1.
Tom and Jerry is intense in that world.
So episode 1 was very effective. And it's even more impressive when I see what they put into place in episode 1 as the foundation for what needs to happen later in the story. Because when I first watched it, I wasn't aware of how clever they're being in the writing and setups and stuff. It was passable. I was like, okay, I'm liking the animation. I can see why you loved it. What was your impression of episode 1?
I think I was the same with Oz, where the story, or it was enough to keep me engaged, and I was curious about certain elements of the story. It looked beautiful, so I kept it on my nice big 4K TV and just enjoyed the pretty lights. But yeah, I think it wasn't until you said oh, dude, after episode 3, it gets good, because right now I've been so, especially with Netflix, I was very uncertain with where this is going. I don't want to invest too much time in it, so I kept my ear to the ground, and it was okay. The first one,
Second one.
Second one. Picked up, but I think it wasn't. Yeah, once episode 3 finished, that final bit, the expectations were just.
And dude, that is just the beginning. It gets better.
Have you seen past episode 3?
No, I think I'm partway through 4.
Okay.
I've
That's
been
the
holding
fight scene in
back.
episode 4. He saw that part.
They
just keep getting better.
Yeah. One bit I really enjoyed with number 3 is when you think everything's lost. Is it Vanguard? He's like on the ground and
Vander.
he's near the juice. In my mind, I'm like, oh, he should use that, but he's not going. He's just going to die because he fell off. But when he used it, I was so happy that like they listened to my mind. I was like, thank you, writers. But
It's great. It's great when you get that satisfaction where you can see a very not only sometimes not obvious because look, I could have understood if Vander died, but then why would they show him landing in the Shimmer?
Exactly.
And the thing is, they showed that it makes logical sense the Shimmer was there because this is the place where they make it, and they already had an establishing scene of them packing it into boxes. Again, they know what they're doing. This wasn't just appearing out of nowhere, and he lands on it, and it's really satisfying when they do the obvious, when a character, there's an obvious thing in front of them, and they do it. There are so many times when I'm watching a show when there's something so blatantly obvious and no character does it or voices it, I'm thinking, you idiots! It's so...
And I feel like killing off those characters at the end, as much as you grew to love them, it does. And we know that some characters are going to last through the seasons because it's the show about them.
This is the thing. I didn't know who were the main characters in League of Legends except Vi and Powder. Everyone else, I was like,
you don't know who's
these people could die. I had no idea, and I don't. You should know already if you're watching this, but for instance, Echo, I had no idea he was going to be a character.
I know him only a little bit, and when I heard Echo, I was like, "What's Echo? Nice!" Because he's anyway.
But yeah, the reason why I like the show so much is if you don't. Or it does very good justice to the original source material, and you can see that because of the guys who were making the show, they came with the idea of V and Jinx.
Well, I end up looking up League of Legends lore, watching several videos.
I want to play League now, but I know it's not the same thing, but I always look at the show
If it wasn't a MOBA, if it was any other game type, I'd play it. But I just
They are making a fighting game.
An arena one.
Yeah, they're making more
I'll play
games.
that.
See,
I'm getting that one.
And if they do a third-person event, I'm just saying...
Yes, dude, set in that world, playing an Arcane game.
Yeah.
Like Dishonored and stuff.
Dude.
Oh, man.
Again, they actually showed remarkable strength and nuance by restricting the world to a very tight story about Piltover.
Yeah.
The world of League is huge.
Massive.
And there's a big lore behind when I was watching these lore things and all the history and stuff, I was like, holy crap. But the fact that they were like, no, let's make a tight story about these characters and
But they have all of the rest of the universe hiding in corners and shots, man. It's nuts.
Well, there are nods to the larger story and things, absolutely. And it's funny because there was this big cataclysmic event that was caused by magic. Essentially, they were the rune stones, and this world is called Rune Terra. It was made by rune stones and stuff. And so this is the reason why the people in Piltover are so against magic. But they don't really. This is a kind of a question I had in episode 2, and it's a good lead-in actually, because at first it wasn't sold logically enough for me.
What, the magic?
The magic, yeah, and so. We're basically introduced now, at the beginning of episode 2, we see Jace he was the one who was trying to open the door. This is his penthouse they were breaking into. They stole his stuff. They got the magic balls from him. He kind of gets blown, not injured, but his experiments get discovered, and, working with magic is illegal.
So Jace got blown by his magic balls in his penthouse. That's what happened?
That's what happened.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Just got to be careful when those magic balls explode.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
Oh my gosh.
He gets discovered, thrown in prison, and is met by Heimerdinger. This is one of the few times when I think the writing wasn't the best. Heimerdinger is introduced, and they obviously want to set his character, and it's honestly a bit of a dumb line, where it's like, imprisonment. Very, very interesting that we would imprison the physical body, but let the mind remain free, or something like that. I'm like, this is the first time we've seen a prison? You would think that imprisoning the body or flesh wouldn't be of course.
To be fair, he is 1,000-year-old little
He's a bit
fairy
senile.
Yoda.
He's about 300 or 600 years old.
Yeah, so he's going to have some weird thoughts about things.
I just think they could have made his analysis of what's going on far more natural for it. But you don't have, I'm not saying natural, it could be a weird observation or something like that, but this felt like a dumb observation. It's you could have done it
One man's dumb observation is another man's philosophy.
I I mean, we saw when Jace got knocked out, we saw a flashback of him being saved by Magic Man.
Which is cool.
And that
Beautiful.
Magic Man is a character in League as well.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And so that made him believe in magic, that it can do good things, and he wants to, and it's established that, like in the council interrogation kind of judgment scene, one of the council people say is like, you have to be born with the gift or something to be able to touch magic.
Yeah.
And so Hex Tech is basically the technology that Jace is developing that enables you to use magic if you're not born with the gift. You're just no magic thing. And so, yeah, that's all fine. But again, the Heimerdinger scene. He objects to the use of magic, and these they don't make sense in what he says here. He has later objections in the actual judgment council scene, and that actually makes sense. But here he's basically saying that it's too dangerous, and I'm like, what? Because scientific experiments could potentially lead to danger, you don't do it? That's like heaps of science has a risk component. You're saying Heimerdinger never had an accident in his experimentation, so that wasn't being sold to me. I was like, no, come on, man. That wouldn't stop you from working with magic. I know he has more valid reasons later, but he doesn't give him this scene. And then he says, magic is a force of nature. It can't be controlled. And I was like,
but it can.
What? But electricity is a force of nature, and we can control that. I mean, the reasoning that was is because it's a force of nature, you can't control it, which was contrary to just reality and science. Science oftentimes tries to control forces of nature. He did not mention that it's too unstable, too chaotic, and is too risky. He says stuff effectively that contextualize that later, but not here. And so in this scene, I'm just thinking, this is not really selling me on not they use magic.
If maybe he spoke up and said, hey, I've seen entire civilizations end because of this sort of stuff.
Well, he says that in the council scene.
I know, right?
But if you just said that to begin with.
And you'd think kind of everyone would know of the cataclysmic event that destroyed civilization.
Yeah.
If you look at the Runeterra map on League of Legends, there's this kind of crater in the ocean where an entire civilization basically nuked themselves.
We're heading that way.
And so there's a lot of validity in saying magic too dangerous, but Heimerdinger doesn't bring it up in this scene, and it's just like, it wasn't sold to me at all. And when he later actually lists some more valid reasons, I'm thinking, well, why didn't you just lead with that in the first place?
Yeah.
So
kind of like with Silco sending in the mutant.
Well, I think that's the thing. He thought that thugs would have taken her out. He was surprised when she took out the first thug. So I think that's fine. And then he was intrigued and all that stuff. Yeah, that line he says, we imprison the physical, but the mind is still free. It's like, what, so you want to imprison the mind? What are you trying to say?
Yeah,
that's pretty dark.
I thought about that for a second. I thought that is some commie thinking right there. That's some Breaking stuff.
And he says, all my life I've studied the mysteries of science, only to discover there are some parts better unsolved.
You do a good Heimerdinger.
Oh, thank you. No, I kind of got it off then. But anyway, sorry, but he doesn't give any explanation to justify it. And to me, that almost seemed like you would need something extreme. Luckily, there is something extreme to justify it. But he does, again, it's not in this scene. You would need something voiced pretty extremely to justify a scientist who is all about science and discovery and progress and all that stuff to say there are some areas you just don't go.
Well, look at Oppenheimer. As soon as he invented the nuke, he's like, oh, I've doomed the planet. I'm sure if he could go back in time and stop himself, he would. He
just could have said, yeah, magic has destroyed civilizations, Jace. It's really unstable. What the hell are you doing? There's a reason why we have a law against it. Stop it!
Well, that doesn't really sound like him. Can you say it like that, but sound like him?
Okay, let me try. Magic has destroyed civilizations, Jace. It is far too unstable, and you just have to stop it, otherwise you could destroy us all, you stupid friggin' retard.
That sold me, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Just close your eyes. Just play that back again.
We go to the scene where they're in the funhouse. There's a great little training scene where Vi is punching against the machine thing, and then she's training with it, and she's actually using proper dodging techniques, like the animation and choreography.
It's incredible.
It's, again, just top notch. We see that I've already addressed that Powder is an amazing shot. This is the scene where she fixes the shooting thing, and she just nails it. Then they kind of get discovered by some of the enforcers, and there's a bit of an escape scene. And there's this one Echo just appears out of nowhere and lowers the ladder to save him. It's like, that's very convenient.
It does show him as So remember when he was watching in the first episode,
Yeah.
he was paying attention to the cops talking to Vander?
There
he was
is-
up top.
There is validity to explain that he's a lurker. He's a spy. He always, and so look, you're right. They have established a way to justify it.
He could have been watching the cops as they came in. He could have...
Well, you're right, because there was a actual confrontation outside the funhouse that could have caught his attention first. And so, yeah, look, there's a ways to... I like that at least there are easier ways to explain some of these potential conveniences and plot holes. It goes to several establishing scenes that kind of move quickly. They're not, but they're important. And so we get to meet the new councilwoman.
She the brown girl? I forgot her name.
Yeah, she's got dark,
Yeah, I liked her character. She was similar to Jace.
So, talking about how they characterize male and female characters and stuff like that. Here is a woman who is in power, yet is happy to be seen, attractive, feminine. She
uses it to advantage.
She uses her beauty to her advantage. She basically seduces Jace later on.
Yeah.
Okay, and again...
But that might have been actual attraction, though.
I think it's a big mix of both.
Bit of both, yeah.
I mean, the thing is, a lot of women are attracted to men in power, and Jace
Especially
becomes
if they're smart and strong.
And Jace becomes a very influential person, and so they're being honest with reality here, right? And she's actually a more complex character, and they show it at the very beginning where someone says, "You're the richest person in Piltover," and she's like, "Yes, but I'm the poorest." And then I think it's her family name. I'm the pourest,
Of my family.
of her family. Again, there's some doubt in her. She's working towards something. She's trying to gain influence and power. Her motives are interesting. Mostly, it seems like it's revealed more later on. Her motives are basically to stick it to her mum, show that she can be successful without the influence of her mum, and to do that, she's after power and influence. She's trying to grow that, and she is doing it by using her natural talents and skills, and even her beauty. All right, this is a good, complex character of a woman in power who is not afraid to be seen as feminine and beautiful, and she is a gorgeous character. Like they designed her amazingly, right? And so. Yeah, she has an important role to play in the story. I think there's going to be more stuff happening later on because we see some interesting diplomatic things happening with her and her mother.
Yeah, but if we're talking about things that happen in the future with her,
well, we'll wait. But I like that there's nods to it early on. They're aware of it without knowing the context. It was just like, okay, but. There is a bit of a win where she catches Jace and Victor trying to break into the thing, and she's like, she believes in them. She's like, you're doing stuff risky, but it could lead to something useful. And so she is the one, and so she plays an important role, and she actually is a decent character.
Yeah,
well done, and I like that they have a almost when I say she's very feminine. She's delicate. She's using the strength. I like it. I like that they're being honest to many different aspects of human experience. Really, where a lot in modern media they don't like.
This is what diverse characters are.
Yeah, there's a lot of diverse. We have a tomboy. We have a lesbian. We have all these great characters that are justified. We have a great father figure who is this legendary just Chad sacrificing himself and all that stuff. We have very feminine, women as well. Like Caitlin is a great kind of character who ends up being strong female, but she's far more delicate than Vi, but yet she... Throughout the series, we'll get to it specifically when we review the other episodes, Vi lets her, experience some rougher, the rougher world, and she has to get tougher and all those things. But she's got talents in her own regard, and she's trying to buck the trend and be successful, and she wants to do good. And I think Caitlin's done really well as well. Because we also cut to Caitlin's family, where they're talking about Jace. They're his patrons and stuff. Are they going to support him in the charges and everything? And so this episode... a lot of it is just set up and establishing things for later on, and so that's why there was nothing hugely wowing me, but I was enjoying the ride and everything. And again, it's all really important setup for the just glorious episode 3.
Man, glorious but tragic.
It's amazing, right? So this is a bit. The councilwoman, the darker skinned one, she's picking a present for one of the councilmen so she can manipulate him. So, and this guy looks like to be a complete moron. And then I was just like, why is he on the council? He's such a friggin' idiot.
Do you want to talk about that while we have our world leaders? You walked into that one.
I did. You got me, Oz. Fine. Yes, we have some.
Here's the thing.
Sorry.
You're a dog-faced pony soldier.
He is the Joe Biden of the universe. The blatantly moronic person on the council.
Yeah.
But so okay, and so we see that manipulation actually play out when they're voting on Jace. Raising her hands, and we see, I forget her name, the councilwoman, but she looks at that guy and is like, he looks at the president and then raises it and joins her vote. And so she was doing it to manipulate him, and say, hey, she's manipulative, she's smart, and all that stuff. We also get Heimerdinger actually oppose the idea of magic, and we get to learn some things. So there's a robot man, a cog robot man on the council.
Yeah.
We, like,
I'd like
this is just my own curiosity, but it's like he's a self-aware automaton.
No, he's I think a General Grievous sort of deal happened
Is
to
he?
him. Yeah.
Because
you see when they go down to the underworld for the first time, they're walking through the streets, and you see these really tall things that look like roughly the same shape, but a bit more bulky. Yeah.
Okay, because I would have liked to have learned a little bit more about it, explaining that they have robot people in this world.
League of Legend people, what is this creature?
But he says like his entire civilization was either destroyed or nearly destroyed by magic, so he's dead against it.
Yeah.
And Heimerdinger, he finally says magic is too unstable, so there's a good justification. That don't even go there. And so Heimerdinger says that I've seen the power. I've seen this power in the wrong hands. It corrupts. It lays waste to civilization. So finally, it's proper reasons to be cagey about magic.
Yeah.
And so, in this episode, though, already we see some of the reasons why I don't like Jace. He gets banished from the council. From the university, right? Instead of being banished from the civilization. And at first he's like, I'm going to try and keep moving on, because he's talking with his mum and everything. And then later on we see him in his penthouse. And basically, essentially, this is the context of what we're shown. He's about to commit suicide, and he's about to give up.
Was he though? I mean, like
he fully steps out onto the very ledge. I watched this closely, and he raises his hand to the side like he's just about to jump.
I don't think I saw that.
Victor, rewatch it. I watched it carefully.
Rewatch it.
Victor opens it and startles him and stops him from doing it. He was about to jump.
I don't know.
Go watch it again. I'm very confident because I was close. It really
I'm pretty sure
looks
I
like
just saw him like looking over the edge.
No. He actually steps out and is like this, ready to just end it. And again, this is one of the reasons I don't like.
If people are going to commit suicide, they typically don't let people stop them.
He probably didn't want anyone watching it.
But
and look, it was a moment of
thought...
emotional weakness, and you can justify it with the character. But I'm saying, for me, it makes his character weak. It comes off weak, and is very manipulable. He was ready to get to me, a strong character would be like, I've been banished from the university, but I'm not giving up. I don't care what they say or what they do. This is going to work, and he pushes forward.
It's called commit suicide because it takes a lot of commitment. Okay, you don't just do it willy-nilly.
No, I didn't like that, and I think this was just one of the first signs about me not really liking Jace. He's like,
I liked him.
Look, double check me, watch it again. Am I right in the comments? Do you think he was about... I really think he was just about to off himself. And, come on, man. Get some balls. Fight for what you believe in.
He just needed that little leg up, he needed a partner.
Oh, look, I like the whole partner thing and everything. Yeah. I like Victor. Victor is a guy that... He's the guy that basically says... Screw the consequences. This can work. Let's go forward with it. Victor is the strong character here who is actually pushing the boundaries. And again, Jace is just going along with the flow, getting manipulated.
He does follow the rules a bit, It
annoys me. It's like I don't know how great Jace is supposed to be in the League of Legends lore or anything like that, but the weakest character in this show, honestly, for me, is Jace. Look, he makes cool stuff. That's cool and everything. And I think there are weak people in the real world. Doesn't mean I have to like him, okay? And so I think he serves the role in the story perfectly adequately, all right? Maybe we'll see some more specific things as we go along. But at the end of the day, I didn't really like him.
The weakest character for me is, I honestly have to say, Vi.
Really?
I like Vi. I like all of them.
My voice just broke. I'm so surprised.
No, I like all of them. But...
What? I'm sorry, I can't recover. No, all right, go.
Sound like Nathan now. You just went.
I'm fine.
Sorry. Anyway,
go, Walls.
Like seriously, I've sounded like this since I was 12 years old. Okay. Anyway, Vi's my least favorite character. I still like her as a character. She's a great character, but I like the other one so much more.
You like Jace more?
Yeah.
Gosh.
I appreciate a man who's like got so much money and power and prestige and still is trying to limit himself.
I am interested to see what the comments say about Jace, but that's my impression of him so far. Maybe you can sway me. I'm going to rewatch the other episodes.
And he has a hammer, and hammers are cool.
He needs more than a cool.
He can hold it, and he can say hammer time before he kills someone. I hope he does.
So there's a scene with Silco, and interesting lines to contextualize characters like, real power. You're not like how to gain power. Real power, you're not born with it. Real power comes to those who will do anything to achieve it.
That's true.
It shows his philosophy.
Do you know what that? Have you heard of a show called Vikings?
Yeah.
Character says, "Power comes to those who are willing to lower themselves to pick it up." Like to get down into the muck.
I think there's more nuance in reality, but I could see why characters could have those perspectives.
Well,
I could see
power
why
corrupts.
Silco has this perspective, and so there's an interesting scene with Vander and Vi. Again, really important one, certain characters where Vi wants to make the topsiders pay, and we get to see why Vander is against it. Is like, you want to make the topsiders pay, but who are you willing to lose to achieve it? And is technically all. I mean, in the process. Because obviously Milo and Clagger die, but Vi, granted, didn't really cause it and stuff. But still, he proposes, like, well, would you be willing to let, Milo, Clagger, Powder die in that pursuit? And there's like, no one wins in war. And you can see where he's coming from because
it actually happens.
He's experienced it. Yeah, and it didn't work out. Like, he lost too much. And this is, look, it leads to a stronger, more complex conversation about the justification for war, because I think I absolutely believe there is a tipping point where you need to oppose evil.
Yeah.
And we saw that in World War II.
But that's the
ultimate
thing.
example.
That's the thing, that these two factions in the show, they're not evil.
Well, this is a more complex, not as stark thing where Vander has more validity in what he's saying, because there's a lot of innocent people in the top side, and you want to wage a war against these people and stuff just because we're not being treated nicely. And look, they're not being treated nicely, but there's a lot of complexity because a lot of the topsiders are committing legitimate crimes and stuff.
Bottom siders, I mean.
But
also the top side, the bottom siders, they're actually not allowed to use certain shipping lanes.
Yeah,
they're kept out of using the world gates.
Yep. And so there is actual
They're
oppression.
not given guns for
And
protection.
they probably don't get a better education.
Or
and,
food.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of issues they're dealing with. And so you can see both sides.
Yeah.
And I think Vander's right. Like, this doesn't justify a war. In actual fact, you might be able to work through a lot of those things, which is the better option.
Which is what he was going for, yeah.
And it's really interesting to see where the show goes towards in that regard, about if it's going to be actual warfare or negotiation. And I like the show it explores that complexity. It honestly does. And so good on him for doing that. It also shows, like that scene, shows how much Vi really does love Vander and relies on. Like, this is why these two episodes are really important, because when Vander does die, you feel it. Like, man, and they set it up so well that this is going to break Vi's. She loves Vander so much, she was willing to sacrifice herself to save him. Yeah. And he's willing to sacrifice himself to save. And so these are two characters that really mean a lot to each other, and it just makes that payoff in episode 3 all the more powerful. And just subtle, important things like this, where Vander is caring about Vi, he's trying to teach her, the difficulties of life, and trying to help her grow up and guide her in the right direction. And ultimately, he does through example and sacrifice. And love Vander, man. Gosh.
I want a prequel with him. Cool.
Man. I'm just so happy with how they did him. I already talked about Jace almost committing suicide. I like Victor's story. It's a better story than Jace's, where he's a poor cripple from the Undercity. He says he was an outsider, no patron. He had to believe in himself. And I think it's a great, I love the message is about meritocracy. Like, you can be born disadvantaged, but if you really try, learn, and have the capacity, you can succeed even against the odds. And so it's good to see that message with Victor there. Okay, so Powder is working on her little bombs in this episode too. And she's like, I know they're going to work this time. Also, really...
Oh boy, did they.
Oh boy. So I do have a question though, right? Why not test one?
Because she's naive.
Well, maybe
it's like she's just running. She's built them, and now she'll just rely on hope and faith that they'll work. It's like you've got more than one. Just test one, girl.
She's a kid.
See if you can perfected the design.
She's a kid, and she's not exactly
she's not an idiot.
No. But here's the thing: she's not exactly drawing down her designs. And also, if she's just spent 3 weeks putting together a bomb, okay, let's test it. Oh, it worked. Oh,
she's got more than one though.
Does she make more of the same? We don't see that happen.
She had 5. She's like, these one, I don't know, shoots stuff. This one shoots nails. She actually picks them up and shows why.
Okay.
And so just test. So there's a legitimate point of criticism. I think we've found, and it's one of the only ones.
Yeah.
And so if that's all I have to complain on, this show is doing very well.
Well, Shad, to build an explosive device like a grenade would be at least the way she builds them. They're not very complicated in reality, but in this world they are. And for a kid to do that and to get it right every time, that's a tough call.
So this episode did hook me at the very end, where it builds up great emotional conflict. Okay, things are starting to escalate. We saw the enforcers come into the thing and knock the drink over and stuff, and that antagonizes them. And so there is this building conflict that they portray quite well. And it's coming to a culmination in this episode where something's happening with Vi, where we know she's basically getting ready to turn herself in, and they imply that quite well. And there's the good, music that is conveying it. She's sitting in the shop and all that stuff, and it has a good build up to the next episode. And then episode 3 just starts with a bang, with the enforcers there. She's about to turn herself in, and so this is already a big sacrifice. You're wondering what's going to happen. And we've already explained it. Vander comes in, locks her in, turns himself in, and Silco comes and kills him, kidnaps him, and we've basically already covered most of episode 3 and how awesome it is. I just see if there's any specifics. And already, this episode showed that it had balls, because Benzo, so the guy that owns the shop that's been Vander's confidant and friend, he gets killed at the very opening of this episode.
What's Silco's name?
Silco.
Oh, okay. I thought he had a different...
No. But we didn't hear the name Silco until this episode.
Okay.
And it's because Vander and Benzo recognizes him. And Benzo's pretty's you, so-and-so and everything. And then, again, this shows, the opening of this episode is willing to kill off characters. Benzo gets killed.
Yep.
And they don't just forget about Echo.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially, we don't know what the relationship between Echo and Benzo was, but it seemed like it was a father figure or boss or something. But they cared for each other. And there's a scene where Echo is crying and distraught. And so, again, it's an effective character death that's motivating Echo.
And then he follows them.
Yeah, Echo follows him and finds out where they took him. And so it's all really, really set up. We're told that Vander betrayed Silco some way, but we're not shown what he did or how. Look, it's actually not necessary.
Yeah, I think it makes it better.
It kind of does just add a bit of mystery that, look, these guys have heavy history.
Yeah.
Vander actually regrets what he did to Silco. That comes out. And so that adds complexity. And I find it interesting that, you're kind of right. We don't actually need to know what happens for this episode to work as well as it did. And also because by showing us what happened, probably would have either taken too much, or they want, because only have a certain amount of time. You want to devote it to the most important things. And this is an extremely tight, efficient episode. And so if they thought, look, we don't want to distract ourselves what the story of this episode is, so we don't need to address it. And because it is that what happened doesn't affect, but we already have established that they have bad blood, and that works.
You can imagine it might have been a similar situation to what happened between Vi and Powder.
Very possible. But they were obviously close in some way. And again, the setup between the conflict between Vander and Silco, first episode, when Vander sits Vi down and he says that there are problems when you fight or fight too much or everything, he looks down to his arm and he tenses his arm and is referencing Silco because Silco's the one that slashed his arm open and stuff. And so again, setups there. They're aware of where the story is going, and even in episode 1 they have this. And so there's an interesting talk between Vander and Silco, and that Vander basically saying it's not worth fighting the topsiders, especially if we're going to sacrifice everything we are. He's essentially saying we can't become monsters to defeat a monster. We become as bad as them. We need to retain our goodness and humanity. And so that's true. It's a great message, right? But Silco is one, as he said, who's willing to do anything to
Yeah.
get what he wants. He thinks it's noble still. He thinks the ends justify the means, and he's willing to murder, cheat, and steal, make mutants and everything to get what he wants. And so that's obviously a clear and stark ideological difference between these two characters. They'll never see eye to eye on that. This is where Vi nearly breaks down, but Clagger and Milo support her. They say, "You're not doing this alone, Vi. Here's our father too." You know, they let the characters shine there, which I love. And then this is where Vi forces Powder to stay behind. Perfectly justified. Vi Powder's reaction justified, perfect. Like, it's just.
I think it's a little too. It's too little, too late. I reckon she's given this girl too many mixed messages. You can do it. You can't do it.
Look, we ultimately. I don't know. Like,
no pun intended. She was a ticking time bomb.
But she has caused it. She's not. She has hope. Like, there's some real signs of great competence in her, but she has been stuffing up too regularly. That if I was in Vi's position, I wouldn't probably risk it either. I would get her to stay behind.
If she had come, right? Remember how they realized it was a trap? Like, what if at that point, when they're still across the ways, they took one of her bombs and just threw the bomb at them?
Well, see, it would be interesting. I wonder how that would play out if they took her with her, because they would be locked in with Vander too. Vi probably would have tried to tell Powder to. Well, actually, no. If they left with her, those magical balls was in the box. And she only found them magical because she dropped the box and they fell out, and that's when she realised they were bombs. If Vi took them with her, she never would have had the bombs with her, and they wouldn't have survived.
Genius!
The thing is, though, from Vi's position, I understand why she forced her to stay behind.
Yeah.
And in her position, I probably would have done the same.
I wouldn't
It's too risky.
I wouldn't have bought a 9-year-old.
You're going into the lion's den, and she has made mistakes. Like in the first episode, she almost falls off a roof, and Vi saved her life. You can't risk that in such a serious, rescue mission. I'm with Vi. I probably would have forced her to stay behind too. This is why I love the show. It's an unavoidable train wreck.
Yep.
Like, the characters are doing exactly what they would do, and because they're doing that, the disaster that happens in the end is the natural result of the events. And so it's perfectly justified, and it's tragic, heartbreaking, and it sets the characters on their path where they're going to end up, and it's an amazing episode.
Even when you do the right thing, it's the worst thing sometimes.
Yes, like... I love it. The complexity this show has, right? Vi has that beautiful hero moment where she stands up and tries to take them on. The build-up is just awesome. And like Vander says, you don't have to do this. And he's like, yes, I do. It's like, And so, you can have a good story. But the way that you pace it, whose face you zoom in on and their expression, everything like that, this is masterfully done.
Yeah.
Okay? They have got the pacing to build the emotion and climax of these scenes. I don't know who they got to do this to. This must be due to the director. The director is picking which scene, which characters to get a close up on, where we're going to look at any given moment.
Well, the guy, last name Link, I forget his first name. He's the creative head of creative. He's the creative director at Riot, and the guy who's like helped him, Lee something Lee, he's also in the creative department. So it's two people who have a labour of love for this thing.
And the studio that did this, the reason why they went with this studio was because they did music videos and stuff.
Yeah,
with
they worked with them for years.
And the exact same reason was the camera work was so on point with conveying the story. They were like, these guys know how to point a camera and
it's masterfully done in this. It is masterfully done. And so the big guy with the tattoos has been intimidating the whole thing. He's the guy that Vi has to fight first, and it's so good. Like, where you see Vi with the gauntlets on, she walks up, and there's a shot behind her where we see this guy towering over her. You don't know if she's gonna win or they're building it up like this is intimidating. She's gonna lose, and when she just comes out with that knockout punch against a guy so big, I was like,
takes him off of his feet.
You feel the weight behind it. They slow-mo it. It's just epic. It's so good. And then the continual fight, right? I'm amazed by this, right? It's an animation, yet the impacts of those metal punches felt more real than things I've seen in live action. They have this sound of the ringing metal as it hits, her weight and movement, and it's like, boing, screaming and stuff, and the impact these people get, like the thugs getting, they're getting knocked off the side, you see their heads crash. It was just real. It felt so real. It was just, the fight was great. It's an incredible, powerful hero moment for her. Going back to when Silco reveals his plan, again, this is a great example of when the rule of cool outweighs realism. It's unrealistic that the villain would reveal his plan to the heroes at this exact time. I disagree,
actually.
What?
The villains of our world have already revealed their plan, and they say it over and over again.
I don't know, it's a cliche, though, when the villain has him in their clutches and is like, my plan is this, Vander and his kids running away like cowards, and I'm going to really kill you and stuff. Like, he what's the point of saying that? Is it taunting? Not like, he just wants the plan to succeed. The thing is, though, I agree with them doing it because it built the emotional conflict of that scene. The audience, I feel, did need to know that information, and by us getting that information at the same time when they're dealing with the trap, it made for a stronger emotional payoff in the scene. And so this is when the rule of cool can outweigh pure realism. It's a great example. I'm going to be referencing it in the future, where there are times when you can make the trade because the trade is to your benefit. And so I'm pointing it out to show I have exceptions to that, my standards, and this is a perfect example.
Know the rules before you break them.
Exactly right. Okay, so we cut to Jace. They succeed in the experiment. There's a good build-up and payoff with that, where... So, something I like. It's something small, but it speaks to me, right? Before, they showed Victor and Jace talking about the experiment, and their conclusion is that they can reach stability if they reach like some type of resonance, which means increasing the vibrations. Jace is like, I've been trying to reduce those vibrations because I thought they were causing instability. And Victor is like, no, ramp them up and we can reach stability through the resonance. And it's like, hey, that's a logical kind of thing. I could see why Jace had the issue, why he was going wrong, and I could see the point about... I don't know, it's like my washing machine, right? When you start it, it'd be shaking, but when it builds up to heaps of speed, it actually starts
It's like spinning a basketball. If it slows down, it gets wobbly and falls off.
So there's logic, like I like there was simple logic to explain it. It explains why Jace was having problems with the experiment, and I don't need to be a scientist to conceptualize how that works. I think it was very well done. And then we see it pay off when they succeed in the experiment, and it's because Jace is doubting, but Victor's like, no, just ramp up that thing. And then there's a kind of a good moment when Jace, like, he has to calm down, and he pictures the Magic Man doing the thing and is trying to maybe copy the same timing as the Magic Man.
He does it intuitively.
Lets
his mind take over.
Well, it almost felt like he was trying to remember the time between each hand motion from the magic guy, and he was trying to match that timing on the dial to achieve whatever they achieve. It's like, this is where
it's magic.
It's magic. We don't know all the rules, but they get stability, and they're obviously using the magic, and they create a anti-gravity field or something like that. Now, this is actually, I kind of like that there seems to be some consistency with the anti-gravity effects of the magic, because that's kind of how Vi can use those giant things later. Exactly, that there's actually a bit of self-levitation in these magical devices. And so there's some consistency with how the magic is working there. I like it. So, yeah, we've already discussed how Powder sees that they're in trouble. And then she, from the knowledge she has, she thinks it's helping, it's justified. She doesn't know that they're actually going to get free without her help. So, and then she puts in too many bombs, and it's tragic, but perfectly done. She's like, she says, I can save them. So when the explosion goes off, again, it's done so well. Do you notice that they replay the explosion three times from 3 different perspectives?
Yep. That was the bit when I was like, okay, this show has got, like...
Talent,
that's the word. Just, like, it wasn't them showing off or being like,
this is
showy.
But I think even if it is, it's showing off, like, look at how we can convey a story in a masterful way by picking a really effective way to translate what is happening to the audience in a dynamic, engrossing thing that just draws you in, and it's powerful. We see 3 effects of this explosion in a big way.
I think as well it's good because it lets you, like, as you're watching it, it sinks in, you think, oh, is someone gonna... No, they'll be okay, right? You've got, like, 4 main characters, they've got plot armor, don't they? Like, that's what I was thinking. I was like, no, they're not dead. No, this is fine, this is just showy. But no, you're right, it's... It was a good moment.
Yeah, and the show, it's got balls. It's willing to, and this isn't a throwaway death of characters, but sometimes also just if the natural course of a story puts a character in where they can't really survive without death, I would generally, and I've done that in my own writing. If a character is in a situation they can't, I hate disingenuous plot armor, and so sometimes I will let characters die or get killed off, even in my own writing, unless. There's a way I can justify them surviving it and stuff. And so I'm not saying that even, deaths that aren't helping or progressing the story, I'm not saying they're disingenuous. If they're justified and that's the natural flow, what that does is create stakes. It means that characters are going to suffer the consequences of certain events. And that means the reader hopefully is going to get worried with the main characters because you show as the writer that cause and effect exists in this story. And they're shown this right here, where, Powder sets off a bomb. What do you think happens?
It goes off.
And people die. Kygo and Milo gets killed. The dramatic tension is amazing. Vander, he needs to say his heart is broken. I've already covered it. 2 of his sons are dead, but Vi's still alive. What is he going to do? Is he going to wallow in misery and cry? No. He's got a daughter to save. He gets, and I love that he the struggle and thing. That it's a powerful moment where he pushes against it, and then Vander goes up against the mutant, and they do Vander justice. He's tough. He actually holds his own little bit against this huge mutant, and this shows that Vander's actually way tougher than Vi, especially at this point. Vi is still learning everything. She couldn't do spit against this mutant. But Vander has this great moment where he locks the arm away and he smacks him right in the neck and he gets these good solid punches, but ultimately the mutant is too powerful. The thing is though, even when Vander gets beaten down, he gets up and is ready to keep going and he gets stabbed in the back.
Yeah.
By Silco.
Yeah.
Silco. It's tragic, but obviously, Silco's clever. He's not as strong as Vander, so he needs to hit him when he's vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's tragic and heartbreaking, but Vander, he's not done yet because he lands on the shimmer and he will do anything to save his daughter, and so he downs the mutant juice. It's just so powerful.
He downs the monster energy.
Because, what happens is when Vander falls down, right, he looks up and he hears Silco say, "Find the girl."
Yeah.
And there's she's still
again,
in danger.
dude. That's the bloody drowning thing. You could see him. He's going to let himself die, but then he hears that. He's like, "Nah,
gotta fight. Gotta get back up."
And he lets the beast out. Literally, he goes Hulk mode.
And so then he kills the mutant, and then he has that choice. He can either kill Silco or save Vi. Kill Silco or save. And he, of course, saves Vi, sacrificing himself. His last words is to take care of Powder, and then Vi just screams in grief. And the power of these scenes are just, I was even tearing up in some of these moments because it was beautiful. Yeah. And then what plays out afterwards, we've kind of already covered. It's tragic, but it's perfectly Vi, she's distraught. Powder says, "It worked. You caused the bomb." "Yes, I did." And she's like, Vi lays the smack down. You can understand why. She's emotionally distraught. She instantly regrets it. I
love characters who aren't perfect.
Yeah.
And who make these very human mistakes.
They do, and it is such a human mistake. And she instantly regrets it, and she tries to save Powder's life, but then she gets captured, and... Oh, man.
We're not going to get something this good for a long, long time.
The 6 years...
It won't be 6 years, man. They have the models.
4 years.
They have the art style. They have the story.
But they'll one-up themselves again.
They will. I hope so.
There's a lot more characters for them to explore with League, and if they have people this talented behind it, show them how it's done, fellas.
Yeah.
This will stand as a shining example of quality in the sludge above the sludge of crap that people are trying to pass off as entertainment these days.
Oh man.
And it condemns all this bullcrap people have been trying to make, where you have to have characters be this way and that way. You can't have, female characters be weak. You can't have them be saved by the man. You can't have all this bullcrap, right? And this really is this is how you friggin' do strong female characters. Give him a clap, man. Come on, you fucking...
The only reason I'm not doing it is
because I'm asking you to.
Because of how Reddit it is to say this is how you do strong female characters. But I know what you mean, right? This is just how you do characters. Like,
Yes,
it's not
you're
just...
right,
They
you're right.
just did great. It's incredible writing.
Because a good...
So I'll clap for the incredible writing.
Thank you. That's what I mean, right? Is because, again, we're not saying that, you know, men can't... Men should have weaknesses and struggles as well. Like, perfect Mary Sue, Gary Sue characters are crap, okay? It's just that all the Mary or Gary Sue characters, they seem to be being represented in one gender more often, aren't they?
Yeah.
So far, I really say Arcane episode 3 is a bloody masterpiece.
Masterpiece, yeah.
Like, amazing.
And it's not even the best episode.
So, I've watched the whole series. I can't say it because I need to watch the other episodes with as much of a critical eye as I did, because when I was really watching episode 3 closely on my second viewing, it blew me away.
Yeah.
I saw so many great things in it. And perhaps that'll happen with later episodes that I know are really strong and great. I don't know. Like, this one has such emotional weight and impact and is set up so well. It could be the highlight, but look, there are some, like that, the ending is amazing as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good. And
Because you know exactly what's
like,
going to happen.
I love how well they did Jinx. It's like, this is the best crazy girl character ever done. Like, Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn's cringe compared to...
It's a contemptible cringe in comparison to how well done Jinx is. It's amazing. Oh, guys, you really are taking him to school. It's like, we'll show you how it's done.
They've showed the entire world of media that these guys who make games, that, you know, they've got a lot of character, but not like tons of... They don't have established story, you know, like...
No, actually, a lot of them have...
They have lore, but they don't have their own, like, movies and TV shows. This is their first one. And it's... Literally, I'd give it a 10 out of 10.
I would probably give episode 3 definitely a 10 out of 10, I think.
Having watched all of it, I give it a 10 out of 10 already.
I mean, look, is it perfect? There are minor criticisms, but they don't hold water too much, and you can kind of explain them and stuff, and all the payoffs are so great. Like, at the very minimum, it's 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10 for me. It's amazing.
You know what? I think I'll download the game and give it a go. I think we should give it a go.
Just to give Riot... Is it Riot?
They have
Give them a bit of microtransaction money.
Hang on,
Yeah.
this is made by Riot Games, right?
Right,
to give Riot Games credit.
They've earned it.
They have.
Absolutely.
And there are some great characters in League. Like, I've always said, League has had way better characters than Dota. That's what's attracted me to them.
They've even got some characters that are like multiple characters.
Yeah,
and you play both
some
of them.
are really dark and have... Like, there's this character, it's a little girl with a teddy bear. Okay, but the teddy bear is basically possessed and turns into this giant monster and things. I watched an animated short of her backstory, and it is shockingly dark.
Wow.
Heartbreakingly dark.
There's one character where you play both. That it's a wolf and a sheep, and their character dynamic is awesome. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, what else can we say apart from?
Good job.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I was drowning in black pills. I was drowning. I was like, you know, Shad, it's all downhill from here until the end. But no, something to look forward to in terms of media.
So, look, thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope to see you on the next. So what we're planning to do is do a 3x3 episode review.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do episodes 4 to 6.
Yeah.
Next. And then, of course, 7 to 9. And it's a 9-episode series, I believe, so that works out well.
This series deserves the time we're spending on Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time deserves nothing.
But it's coming out weekly. So
But we have to. And we have to tear it apart, and that's fun.
Actually, it deserves to be...
Destroyed, yeah, fair enough.
Okay. But this just goes to show you that you always need to stay watchful.